atomic gigantification was a sweeping Japan nation when along came a dude with an ultra attitude, a Kamen Rider who's the greatest kicker of Japan. And of all, man, life's too short now, baby, to not talk big now, baby.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to a brand new episode of Kaiju Conversation. I'm your host, Elijah, and joining me today is my lovely co-host and editor,
Rex. Hello.
And here we are, back for a surprising new episode.
A very exciting episode, you could say. One that I've been quite looking forward to.
Yeah. So we were supposed to not be weekly this month, but I'm pretty sure we're going to end up being weekly.
Oopsie.
So look at that. Look at us. Look at us doing so well.
Look at us being slaves to ourselves.
Mm-hmm. We talked about the other day. We were like, maybe we should add a few episodes to a certain month just to do it. And I feel like we're leaning towards a yes, but we haven't had that conversation yet, so I don't really know. But I was like, man, here we are, like talking about like having a break, and then we're like, let's add more. Let's do that. That's a great idea. We're already busy, and let's add more.
Yeah, we're busy.
That's
Why
what
not
we
make
should
ourselves
do.
busier?
Hey man, the people I work with think that that's my motto. And Travis is always like, when you aren't busy and you get stuff done, you're not supposed to add more. I'm like, well, I did. So it is what it is. So yeah, here we are back again doing a brand new episode. We are on episode 66, Rex.
Phew. That's quite a lot. Almost basically two-thirds of the way to 100.
Over halfway there.
Yeah.
And almost to the third quarter.
Yeah. Well, that's what I
so
just said.
Look at that. Yeah. So look at that. We're doing really good. I mean, we at the beginning of this year we did say it is the year of Kaiju Conversation, and I feel like we're holding up to that as we've been producing content like crazy and learning about how we are and who we are. So we have another great episode planned for you. But before we do that, we love to catch up with each other. We actually haven't recorded in a week, right? Or no? We had a week off. I'm trying to remember if that was last week or the week prior. I want to say it was
probably the
last
week prior. Because we kind of had that gap between like
all I know
last
is
Star Wars month episodes.
That's right. Because I know my best friend was like, "Don't you have a podcast recording?" I'm like, "No, I got a week off." And now I don't anymore. There's no week off for a while.
Well,
but it's fine. We got this. So, Rex, how have you been? We've talked a little bit more recently than normal, but we haven't really how have you been? How's life?
I've been pretty good for the most part, you know. I went to an early screening of Transformers Rise of the Beast, so that was pretty fun.
How was that?
That was all right. I had fun. Not quite as good as I was hoping, but I still enjoyed myself.
Right. I'll probably eventually watch it, but I don't know. There's something about it that just doesn't feel like it's going to be Bumblebee to me. I love Bumblebee. Bumblebee's a great
Bumblebee was
amazing.
Movie. I loved that movie.
That is the pinnacle version of how Transformers should be in live action, I feel.
Oh, I'd agree. That just I had low expectations for that film, and that one just absolutely surprised me. I loved it.
Likewise. And I want to be excited for Transformers 1.
That prequel animated one.
Yeah, with Chris Pratt voicing Optimus Prime.
Hemsworth.
Oh, that's right. Chris Hemsworth voicing Optimus Prime.
And
I don't know how to feel
Brian
about
Tyree
that.
Henry doing Megatron?
I'm pretty sure. It's in Scarlett Johansson's in it, and they're saying it's
God.
the first ever
first
animated
ever
movie.
animated Transformers movie.
So when that story ran, there was like the Twitter like actually bubble.
Yeah,
And it was like, actually, there's a 1985 movie titled The Transformers the Movie, which is the actual first Transformers animated movie. I was
and
like,
first Transformers movie.
this is true, and it's the best. You're not agreeing with me.
I haven't seen it.
You're
I was
joking.
very tempted to watch it like the day before I saw Rise of the Beast, but I didn't do it. I'm sorry, man.
It's amazing. Like the
I've
soundtrack.
I've seen one season of G1 and I've seen about 12, 15 or so episodes of season 2. That's my experience of G1.
This is in between season 2 and 3.
Yeah, that's why I haven't watched it.
Well, you need to, because it's like the soundtrack, the colors, the animation's sometimes shoddy, but it's still great. It's done by Toei, so it's technically anime. And it's Orson Welles' last film.
Mm.
It's got Leonard Nimoy. It's great.
Oh yeah, Leonard Nimoy. Doesn't he voice
Galvatron.
Huh.
But moving on beyond Transformers and CGI, what else have you done?
Not too much, especially today since my legs are absolutely dead.
Leg day?
Yeah, that was a couple days ago. That was a very intense leg day. Very intense.
Fair enough. Yeah, see, I'm kind of like you. I've been pretty busy. I work because G-Fest is coming up. I have to work about 50 hours a week.
Oh my.
To ensure that I have the right funds and I can afford everything I need to get. I just invested in some lapel mics for something that I have to do at G-Fest that I don't think I can talk about just yet, which is kind of exciting. But beyond that, I've been working on my short film for G-Fest. The filming is done, so now I'm going into the audio design and editing.
Yeah.
And some particle effects and whatnot, color correction, all that good jazz.
Right.
And that's going to probably go through all the way up till the deadline. Actually, after this week, all of my free time is going to be spent working on the short film because I don't even know if I'll have enough time to catch up and hit that deadline. So I need to make sure I'm spending at least an hour on it every day. But that's exciting. Beyond that, I've been working on Kaiju Ramen a little bit, pretty typical stuff. Prepping for G-Fest, I'm going to be on a few panels and just prepping, working for Kaiju Ramen, like I said, doing Kaiju Weekly, the weekly news report that we do every Sunday. And, that's been pretty much it. On my days off, I have 2 days off a week. This last week, I spent it working on my short film and doing housework. And today, my best friend's out of town. He's on vacation, and he lives with me right now. And he never listens to this stuff, so I can just be brutally honest. It's really nice that he's on vacation. When he's, and I love the guy. I'm not, I wouldn't kick him out for anything. And I respect him. And
yeah,
I have no issue with him doing what he does, but usually he's home before I get home.
Mm-hmm.
So he's either watching a Fast and the Furious movie, watching YouTube videos, or playing on his Xbox that's connected to my TV. So I never have access to my TV. And if he's not doing those, he's sleeping, and I don't want to wake him up. And if he's not, if I put in a movie, he sleeps quite literally to every movie. Watching a movie with him is awful. it aggravates me because I've never been able to sit through a movie with him. We were watching Versus and he was falling asleep, so I just stopped it because I was like, I'm not gonna like keep playing this.
Mhm.
So, and when he sleeps, he snores, which is obnoxious to watch a movie with. So he's been out of town, and today was my day off. So I actually spent all of my day. I mean, I slept till about 11, but I watched the movie last night, finished it this morning, and I watched a lot of movies today. So it's been really great.
Are you saying there's a chance you might have actually like watched Tokusatsu?
Yeah. It's been like 6 months since I've been able to say that. So I feel like this is a perfect segue into talking about what Tokusatsu we've watched. There's a few things I want to talk about. Would you rather do those before we go into our Tokusatsu talk?
Well, now that you've got me a little bit curious, go ahead.
Well, I was excited for Across the Spider-Verse, the sequel to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, mostly because Chris Miller, the co-director of the first film and the co-producer of the second film, promised and said that Japanese Spider-Man was designed and that he would be included. Spoiler alert going forward, for Spider-Verse, so if you don't want to hear this, probably skip about a minute, because I don't think we have too much to talk about. Starting
a couple minutes, maybe.
Couple, maybe. But he doesn't appear in it, even though it looked like he appeared in some of the posters, maybe as a little Easter egg.
Yeah, he did. You can see him with his bracelet.
But also, every Spider-Man kind of is wearing a bracelet, so some people have theorized that that's not actually Japanese Spider-Man.
Is it? Oh. Admittedly,
so
I have not seen the film, and I know you haven't either.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not interested in watching it until Japanese Spider-Man's in it. And that's probably... There's probably people that are like, what is he talking about? Why did he say that? They are immaculate pieces of art in animation. And I have no doubt. I have no doubt. I just don't care. I have no care to watch him. But... we did get confirmation that so the director said that in due time he'll appear. Not only that, but the talent agency that has the actor for the original Japanese Spider-Man reported that he had done voice work for it. The director of the first film said he was designed, and they said that they did want to include him, that they love him as a character and they want to include him. Mm-hmm. And since then, we've had like the Marvel Legends figure of him, the 616 documentary about him, episode 1. We've had the Mattel model car. We've had a die-cast Leopardon 6-inch action figure. We've had, I think we had like the bracelet, a 1-to-1 scale bracelet that people could buy. We've had a lot of content for Japanese Spider-Man. There's even a Bandai Premium t-shirt out there. And, it seemed like things were going well and that we would see Japanese Spider-Man, but unfortunately it looks like we have to wait a little under a year for that to happen.
Well, that's assuming it hasn't been delayed, which is it looks likely that Spider-Verse 3 has been delayed.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, from what I understand, that they've on the official Twitter account, they removed the release date for the Beyond the Spider-Verse, so it probably will get delayed.
Interesting. But I maybe I'm awful for saying that I only want to watch it for Japanese Spider-Man, but I'm weird like that. But I will go see it. I will.
We got limited time on this earth. Can't watch everything.
This is true. But I will try. But moving on from that, we had some film announcements and some film reveals. We have SRS. Last recording, we talked about the Princess Blade, and in that we talked about how SRS announced the God Whale.
Yeah.
We have the second title reveal, and my predictions were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We got something that I was really surprised we were getting. We're getting Takashi Miike's The Great Yokai War 2 Guardians from SRS Cinema.
Yeah.
Which, okay, in The Princess Blade, I brought up how I wasn't too hyped about the God Whale being an SRS title, but that one, like, I feel like I can get by, but Great Yokai War 2 kind of pisses me off. Mostly because it's going to look awful on my shelf. The way Arrow designed the Yokai Monsters set, it really seemed like once the box set was done, they were going to do the trilogy on one Blu-ray, and then they were going to do Great Yokai War as a singular Blu-ray, and then release Great Yokai War 2 as a singular Blu-ray. That's what it looked like. And by the time that set came out, Great Yokai War 2 was out.
Yeah.
So, like, it aggravates me.
They never released it.
They never released it. So it really aggravates me that I'm going to have the Arrow stuff, and then I'm going to have in the middle SRS Cinema. And, like, so here's the thing about the Arrow set. And this isn't just Arrow, so I'm not going to be just, like, saying Arrow is the best thing ever. Arrow did include everything from the Media Blaster set. And Media Blasters, like, took everything from the Japanese Blu-ray, subtitled it, translated it, and even recorded an English dub.
Yeah.
And then mixed it in with the other audio and synced it up, and we have that. It's really aggravating because SRS will not fund for a dub. They will not pay for a dub. So we're going to have Great Yokai War 2 subtitled by the subtitles provided for the film festival showings. And, like, that's going to be it.
Mm-hmm.
There's not going to be any, like, amazing thing on this Blu-ray, I guarantee you.
Mm-hmm.
Which is going to look awful. You have the fully loaded, like, Takashi Miike commentary, audio commentary by film historians, English dub, Japanese, with subtitles, original trailers with subtitles, behind-the-scenes featurettes, the short films, and then you're going to get the SRS one, which is going to be subtitled, original Japanese trailer, and other SRS trailers. And, like, that's going to basically be it. And it's like, why? Why do this? And it'll probably be Matt Frank doing the artwork. They probably won't get the same artist that worked for Arrow. It would be great if they did. I would if SRS does that, I will be a lot more supportive. I'm still going to buy it, but, like, I just don't think they'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I also got confirmation. Usually, like, Rex, you could buy all of the past SRS releases, and, like, they'd be fine. Because they're not region locked, anything. God Whale and Great Yokai War 2 are region A locked.
Huh.
So they are going to be locked to region A.
Huh.
That's probably because SRS couldn't afford to do, like, region A unlocked. Because I bet that's a bigger price. It's a little disappointing, but I'll be fine with it. I'll buy it.
I have a Region A Blu-ray player anyway, so...
Look at you being prepared.
Yes, I've been prepared for 4 years.
Look at that. You're basically ready for a zombie apocalypse.
I know, it's great. I don't know how a Blu-ray player is going to help me on the zombie apocalypse, but it's great.
You'll be able to watch all the movies you want before you die.
How am I going to import all the Region A Blu-rays?
You're going to get on a boat so the zombies can't get you.
Yes, right. Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. Speaking of preparing for the future, a certain actor is also preparing for the future, as Godzilla 2014 actor Bryan Cranston announced that he's going to be semi-retiring from acting in 2026.
Mm-hmm.
which I thought's kind of interesting. I didn't know this, but in 2026 he's turning 70.
Jesus, what?
Yeah. So he was 58 when he did Godzilla 2014.
Wow.
I thought he was in his early 50s, that latest, to be honest. Like,
I thought, wow. Yeah, I thought he was
like
a bit
an old
younger.
Person. So yeah, there's the bombshell for the episode. Is Bryan Cranston is old.
I mean, I'm not surprised that he'd be like in his 60s with the beard he's got, but like
when he's clean shaven, he doesn't look it.
Yeah,
bro looks like he's cooking up cocaine in a school lab.
It's not cocaine; it's meth.
Oh.
You didn't watch enough Breaking Bad memes.
I haven't watched a single anything of anything Breaking Bad.
I have seen the first season.
I don't even know what it's about.
It's about cooking meth with the chemistry teacher.
Oh.
Who has cancer.
So, there's my little knowledge, but no, I was really surprised that Bryan Cranston was semi-retiring.
Yeah.
That's really shocking. It makes he mainly said it because he's married and he wants to focus on his marriage a little bit and not get stuff in the middle, so his job takes up all of his time.
Yeah.
Because, jobs can take up a lot of time. Imagine if you had to travel to Skull Island and, you had a wife and children and you're like, well, I got to go on this adventure. And then you get stuck there and you're like, well, dear Billy, I'm going to die here. And this is what's going to be left of me.
Is this a smooth transition towards Skull Island anime? Like that new
yes,
trailer
it
that
was.
just came
and
out?
you just made it even easier to do that. So yes. Legendary also released the official trailer for the Skull Island anime, which looks a lot like the early 2000s like King Kong or the Kong anime, or the Dino Squad. I was going to say Dino Riders, but it's Dino Squad. I don't know if you know what that is, but it does.
Really.
It definitely looks like early 2000s animation, and I'm all for that. It looks pretty good.
Honestly, the look from what I've seen kind of reminds me more of those DC animated movies that they release every couple of years.
I could see that too. Definitely, yeah, definitely.
And obviously, the Castlevania show that's from the same studio.
That's right. They did do a Castlevania movie.
Show.
I meant show. See, I love movies so much that I want everything to be a movie.
But everything is not a movie.
Yeah, this is true. So, I mean, it looks good. I know there's going to be a lot of monsters, a lot of titans, I guess. And
I'm happy to see the Skullcrawlers return.
Though they are slightly different.
Oh.
Their looks. They're a little more bulkier, I noticed.
Oh. I haven't actually watched the official trailer yet. I've only seen the teaser one.
Oh.
I saw a couple snippets from it, so I know they showed the Skullcrawler in the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
they're a little bulkier. I watched it. So I woke up this morning because it actually came out yesterday, I guess now. It came out and I woke up and I saw the notification. I was like, oh, here it is. Let me just sit and watch this in my half asleep state. So I'm excited to see it. I'll definitely watch it. It looks more promising than I thought it'd be.
Mm-hmm. It looks all right.
But it is kind of weird that we had nothing for years and now we're just getting all of it.
I mean, basically the same thing happened with Pacific Rim the Black.
Well, that show also died very quick, so...
Yeah.
And the showrunner
are you really expecting anything much different from this?
No, even though the director or the showrunner did say there's going to be a season 2 if everybody watches season 1.
I mean,
I
Pacific
feel
Rim got
like
to season 2.
it got to season 3, but each
No, it got
season they
season
like
2.
cut. Did it end after? Oh, I'm thinking about Ultraman.
Yeah, you're thinking Ultraman.
But what's funny is with each season of these kaiju shows, they like slash the budget. And so eventually by like their third season, they're like, we can do 6 episodes and that's about it.
I mean, you use Ultraman as an example, but Ultraman actually got more episodes in its third season.
Did it?
Yeah, season 2 is 6 episodes. Season 3 is like 12.
Oh, so it's a full season.
Yeah.
So I guess that to me that almost feels like there's 2 seasons and like a miniseries.
I mean,
like I feel like
season 2 basically just felt like a movie. That's kind of how I watched it. Because I just watched it all in one night, and it's like all 20-minute episodes, so it's like basically a 2-hour movie.
An hour,
length.
2 hours, yeah. See, I watched season 1, but I never picked it up after that. I should probably watch those. But another, speaking of probably watching, I probably should rewatch Terror of Mechagodzilla, because recently we had the unfortunate announcement that the script writer passed away, which was very unfortunate. I was hoping I could eventually meet her because she wrote. So first of all, she's the first female to completely write a Godzilla script on her own, and then work with Honda. There was a female writer on Son of Godzilla.
Yeah, for one of the early scripts.
But I mean, she was just a co-writer. She didn't do a whole lot. But for Terror,
I don't think she was involved in the final script, anyways. I think that was.
I don't think so.
Was it Sekizawa did that?
Yes, it was. But for Terror of Mechagodzilla, now, yes, Ishiro Honda fine-tuned it, but a lot of that film is really, like, without her writing Terror of Mechagodzilla, like, Katsura would have not been the strong, amazing character she is.
Yeah.
And a list of other things that, like, she just pulled from her personal experience, and, like...
Yukiko Takayama was her name.
Yes. I was actually pulling up to make sure I wasn't going to butcher her name, so thank you for bringing it up. But Takayama, she, in her last few years of her life, according to Tomoko Ai, at G-Fest last year, Tomoko Ai and her connected recently, and they had been doing a podcast in Japan where they would like get together every week and just hang out and talk. Which would be great, like if we could get a translation or something about, like, I feel like that'd be really cool. But no, I was really, like, when I heard that, I was really disappointed because Terror of Mechagodzilla is my favorite Godzilla movie. Yeah. And like, that's all thanks to her amazing work. Like, she single-handedly wrote one of the best Showa Godzilla films that is able to capture the darkness of the original, but also have a lighthearted tone of your late 60s and 1970s Godzilla movies, which is quite amazing. Yeah. So that, I wanted to make sure we brought her up and highlighted her and talked about her a little bit in honor of her, because she did a hell of a job.
And, brought us one of Ishiro Honda's best films as well.
And his last Godzilla movie too, which I think is really important. God, it'd be great to get a 4K of Terror of Mechagodzilla. I'd love to see that.
Oh, that would look so good.
It would. And I mean, in general, I wish we could get more 4K Godzilla movies.
I wish we could get physical releases of them.
Me too, and that's something that Chris Mowry said that they were going to work on, but Now that's, I guess, no longer relevant.
Weren't there some layoffs?
So this is the segue into the last thing I really wanted to bring up here. That was a really clean segue, by the way. So the Toho LA branch, Toho International, recently laid off half of its team, including the head marketing manager, Chris Mowry, who wrote and worked on the IDW Godzilla comics, was doing the web series Godzilla
Tales?
What was it? It wasn't Godzilla Tales. That was something that...
Pretty sure it was.
No, because Godzilla Tales was the thing that IGN worked on. That was the IGN co-production.
Are you sure?
It's Godzilla Chomp or something. They were like 5-minute videos talking about the history of Godzilla.
Godzilla Chomp, right?
Yep. But like in it, they show that they're mishandling like film cells and
and I remember people on Twitter getting mad about that.
And I'm sure that Toho like saw that and saw that like they're kind of revealing too much about the inner workings of Toho, and Chris is too busy doing hot sauce and protein mixes and candy bars and just GodzillaFoods.com. So
Chris,
I'm
or whoever's taken his place, please bring that pre-workout to Australia. Come on.
So
I'd buy it.
This is a really interesting thing to me. And I kind of want to talk about this for a bit. So I felt like Toho International was actually, I mean, they were doing stuff. They weren't doing exactly what the fans wanted, but they were clearly doing stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we got the Criterion box set. We got the Playmates figures and, you know, new characters and bringing over the Bandais before them.
I mean,
and
we've had a lot of translations of like Godzilla Island, Godzilla, and even the new Chibi Godzilla show as well.
Right, and even like Godzilla and Godzilla Raids Again, we're getting novelizations of.
Oh yeah, that's true. I must say that Chibi Godzilla show, by the way, that is way better than it has any right of being.
I haven't watched it.
It's really funny. It's really funny.
But you know, that like the fact we're getting translations of that's really cool, and we're getting official releases on YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, hell, they brought season 2 of the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla show on there. Now, granted, they split it into 3 parts for each episode for, like, no reason outside of we need to split the views across, you know?
Right.
But, like, nonetheless, those episodes have been out of print for years, decades.
They've been lost. Season 2's been lost since Netflix.
Only if you don't know where to look.
Right. This is true. In some regards, God's work.
Yeah, and I mean, even on the 4Ks, you know, like as you said before, he was trying to push for that, you know? He was able to at least get a theatrical showing with the 54 4K. Now, whether or not he would have actually been able to, you know, get a physical release of any of the 4Ks, who knows, you know? But frankly, he probably has no control. From what he said, it sounded like he has no control over whether or not,
you know, it's weird because Chris was being a very vocal individual from Toho, which was abnormal. And I'm curious what exactly made Toho think let's lay him off. I wonder if it was he was too vocal. Toho likes to keep to themselves. When they show,
I don't know. I mean, mind you, they still had him appear on, like, if they had an issue with him being too vocal, they wouldn't have invited him onto, like, some of the, like, the promotions on the Japanese YouTube channel for the Godzilla store. They wouldn't have uploaded Godzilla Chomp and subtitled it in Japanese.
But maybe
for
they
the
were just doing
Japanese
that because
Godzilla YouTube
that
channel, don't
is
you think?
free content. Like,
I mean,
it's just
maybe,
it's really
but, like,
weird that
I don't know. I mean, he wasn't revealing that much in like that Godzilla Chomp series. They were very short videos, and like honestly, their biggest flaw is that they are so short and they don't really go into anything particularly like new. The most interesting episode was probably that episode where he took a look at the film reels, because that
right. And
there's
that
a lot
I
of
feel like
history
that
to be
did confirm
explored
that they
with
have
those,
some, if not all, the theatrical versions of the Godzilla films somewhere in their vault. Like, one thing I learned was definitely that Toho International has a lot more than we think. Anything. Because it really felt like anything that was like marketed in America, especially, like they have something of it.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious what Toho didn't like he was doing, because they had to lay him off for a reason. So that really intrigues me. I'd be really curious to see what was going on behind the scenes. Because I mean, what they did is after they laid him off and the half of the team reportedly, they ended up hiring triple what they had. So like if they had 30 people, they ended up hiring like 90. So like the branch just got bigger. I've also read somewhere that Crunchyroll had something to do with it.
Of course.
But that's weird. So like Crunchyroll has nothing to do with Godzilla besides them having streaming, theatrical.
Isn't like two former like Crunchyroll employees also working for like the LA branch, or were working for the LA branch?
Yes. And on top of that, Crunchyroll has streaming, theatrical, and physical rights to Shin Godzilla. That's all that Crunchyroll has, to my understanding, with Toho and Godzilla. Is some employees that worked for Crunchyroll, works for Toho now, and
I mean, they obviously would also have connections with Toho through just like their anime distribution as well.
But like Toho International specifically, like the only connections is they have to work with Shin Godzilla for like showings and whatnot.
Right.
And there's some ex Crunchyroll workers working for Toho International now.
Yeah.
On one hand, this concerns me because like they were moving in a direction, and like Chris Mowry clearly had love for the character.
Oh, definitely.
But one of the Toho workers clarified that a lot of the people that have been there for years are still there. They're still there, and they're still carrying that hope. But I am also like, well, with this influx, clearly that means Toho is wanting more. Maybe what it was yeah. So, you know, I think I feel like their social media presence has definitely gotten better in the last year or so. And the fact that they're translating stuff and distributing stuff is, I think, another great example of them working on it. The future of Toho International appears to be very bright. With the influx of more people. Like I threw out I thought of maybe 30 people work there, and now they have 90. But I'm sure there was more than 30 people between the translators, Chris Mowry, your marketing team, your social media team, your like merchandise team, your film team. Like I'm sure there's more than 30 people. So like maybe they have a few hundred now. Just the thought and fact that now we have a bigger team excites me. Maybe it's them gearing up for having a larger presence with Godzilla. And the final thing that I'm going to segue in here to is the fact that in August, Toho's going to Anime Matsuri.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to have Godzilla Zero up front there for everybody to see. I'm like, if Toho, and apparently Toho is a very big presence at Anime Matsuri this year.
Mm-hmm.
If they're going, like, if they're releasing this in America, like this is where the reveal is going to be, is in America, I guarantee you that means they're working to get it released. If Crunchyroll has something to do with Toho International's change of management and employment, maybe Crunchyroll is going to start directly working with Toho.
Oh, please, God. Anyone but Fathom. Anyone but Fathom. I will take Crunchyroll, Funimation. I'll take them. Please, God, not Fathom. Anyone but Fathom.
If you look at it, Crunchyroll worked with Toho on Parasite Part 1 and 2. They worked with Toho on Space Battleship Yamato. They worked with Toho on Shin Godzilla. And a whole like slew of other Toho titles, whether it's anime or tokusatsu. I feel like Toho and Crunchyroll / Funimation / Sony has a very good working relationship with modern titles. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't be surprised if Janus and heck, even Sony did the Criterion release in the UK.
Yeah. So
it's obvious that Sony is working with Toho, and Sony's a Japanese company, so I'm not too shocked by that.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of seems like that Toho's trusting like Janus and Criterion for their classic films, and then Crunchyroll, Funimation for their modern films, because there's an obvious like anime fan base that they can appeal to, and a classic film buff audience.
I mean, to be fair, they did. Their last theatrical Godzilla film was from an anime director, so that did help influence the marketing.
This is true, but like Yamazaki has done animated movies.
Oh yeah, that's actually true.
And he's done live action adaptations. Yeah. So
right, yeah.
I feel like it's in the same ballpark. I think any modern director Toho puts on a Godzilla movie will be an anime or an anime adaptation director.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's just kind of impossible to skip over unless they get like Miike or Shitsuke Kaneko again. So I'm excited. I think we have a lot of cool stuff coming. I think maybe we could see an even bigger push for Godzilla post 2023.
Yeah.
And that excites me. And the fact that they're going to bring Godzilla Zero to America to market the film initially, and then on top of that, they're adding more people to Toho International, and they're working with Crunchyroll for some reason with them. I almost feel like we're going to get a Toho commissioned Godzilla Zero dub by Crunchyroll, or at least a subtitled released version. I almost feel like it's guaranteed between the recent Shin Ultraman and Shin Kamen Rider theatrical showings that Godzilla Zero will definitely get a theatrical release.
Mm.
We're getting to a point where I feel like straight to DVD releases for big like kaiju and tokusatsu titles from major studios is a thing of the past. I think
thank God
there is an audience there for theatrical showings to be presented.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of straight to video releases, I feel like I've kind of gone off into this little thing here. Let's go back here and let's talk about some tokusatsu we've watched, because I've watched some tokusatsu, Rex.
Oh, goody.
So, do you want to start, or would you like me to start with my tokusatsu?
Feel free.
Okay. So, I've actually watched a decent amount in the last day, actually. Like I said, my best friend was gone, so like I was able to sit and I was able to watch all the tokusatsu I wanted without him interfering.
Mm-hmm.
So I watched a lot of Toei films, actually. before I bring that up, I'm going to bring up two other ones. I watched the 2009 Katakawa Nishimura film named Robo Geisha. It's very much a Nishimura-inspired film. You know, if you watch any tokusatsu, like low-budget film from like 2007 to like 2014, and it's Nikatsu or Nishimura, they all have the same style.
Yeah.
Over-sexualized, absurd stuff.
Lots of gore.
Tons of gore. And then a surprise kaiju that appears out of nowhere for no reason.
Oh.
And Robo Geisha was a giant robotic pagoda. That was a man in a suit, which was a really big surprise.
Hey, nice.
Yeah, it was really cool. And so like I enjoyed it. You know, it is what it is. It's I'm not a huge fan of that genre, that style of film, but you know, it's entertaining. You can sit there for the hour and a half, 2 hours it is, and be entertained.
Have you seen Tokyo Ghoul Police?
No, I haven't seen that one.
You should watch that.
But beyond that, I got to watch a Toho J-horror film, which I was genuinely shocked about. I really need you to watch it, Rex. It's from 1999, so it's right after Ring came out. So this is like J-horror boom ramping up.
Yeah.
And you would think it's like pretty middle-of-the-run, typical J-horror stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not. It's called The Hypnotist. And it's a J-horror movie that has the mystery element of Ring, but it does not fall into the tropes of J-horror. It's actually really cool. I really enjoyed it. I want us to cover it on the podcast. It's got some really cool ideas. It's got some cool stuff. And I think it is one of those like ignored masterpieces. I don't know if it is a masterpiece, but I definitely feel like it does not get talked about like it should, because
as most J-horror is not talked about.
This is true. If you don't have the name Nakata or Shimizu or Miike as your last name, you probably have been ignored.
Yeah, which is sad, but the truth. Is. I mean, but the director of Hypnotist, I was looking it up. He actually directed Ju-on Beginning of the End and Ju-on Final.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. I didn't know that. That's actually really interesting.
Yeah.
So you need to watch it, Rex.
Perhaps.
But like I mentioned when I started listing these off, I've watched a lot of Toei too. I watched
Have
two
you
Toei.
finally watched Female Prisoner Scorpion?
No.
Oh.
Yeah, I knew. I'm an awful human being.
Yeah.
I watched two Showa J-horror titles. The first of them being House of Terrors, released in 1965. It reminded me a lot of Snake Girl and the Silver-Haired Witch.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a haunted house J-horror. Really interesting. A lot of fun. I enjoyed it. And then the other one, which I was shocked about because I didn't think I was going to like it, was A Haunted Turkish Bathhouse. It was released in 1975, and Toei in the mid-70s is really kind of creepy and crazy. Wolf Guy and Legend of Dinosaurs and Monster Birds, like those came out, and you know, Toei was a little crazy.
This was in their exploitative era, you could say.
Yes, and I'm going to be real with you. I don't think I've watched a movie with more tits than that movie. Like as soon as the movie starts, they're there. I'm like, oh god, here we go. They are not hidden at all in the movie.
I mean,
it's
Female Prisoner Scorpion, especially that first one, has a fair bit as well, just from its opening credits.
It's definitely like borderline pink film.
Yeah,
but it was actually really good. I was shocked how much I liked it. Definitely would recommend for anybody who's interested in Showa J horror.
Mhm.
I'm a little sad now that I missed out on the limited edition by Mondo Macabere. I had to get the standard edition, which all it's missing is like it's not in the red case and it doesn't have the booklet. But I
Yeah.
wish I would have got it because that's actually a really good title. I was really surprised by how well that movie was.
Mhm.
And the final film that I watched was Yo-Yo Girl Cop, directed by Kenji Fukusaku's son. It was like 2007 when it came out, and it's like a direct sequel to the Sukiban Deka television show. So
Really?
that one was that was pretty interesting.
It's a sequel to Suki. Huh. I didn't know that.
So yeah. And then there's one more Toei title that I can't remember. It was on the tip of my tongue.
No.
Rex, why don't you tell me and the viewers what Tokusatsu you watched? And while you do that, I'm going to try to
figure it
remember
out.
what it is.
Maybe. Yeah. Hopefully. Well, I have, I've been going not quite as full steam ahead as I was previously, but I'm powering on through Ultraman Max, Kamen Rider V3, Shinkenja as well. I actually got past actually watched the Takeshi Miike directed episodes of Ultraman Max.
Nice. How were those?
Quite good, especially the first one he did. That first one is really, really good. Very Miike.
I was curious if you would be able to tell like the difference.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you can. Just like, especially if you've seen like Happiness of Katakuri's, it's got like a sort of similar. There's some visuals and a bit of the style is very similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not quite going for the same thing, but there's some similar visuals here and there.
Now, they also brought Shutsuke Kaneko in to do a few episodes, right?
Yeah, I've seen most of his episodes because he did like the first episode. I think he did episode 2, and then he did the Antler episode.
Gotcha. And I feel like somebody said it, but I don't know if this is true. Did Akio Jisoji come back to do an episode or two? I know that this was like right before he died. Like it was like a year before he died. So I don't know if he did.
I'm not sure, to be honest. If he did, I doubt I've seen that episode. Okay, yeah, he did come back.
Oh.
Okay, yeah, I'm not up to. So he comes back for 2 episodes. I've not seen either of them. Mm-hmm. One of them is actually a sequel to an Ultra 7 episode, though, which is cool.
Oh.
Yeah.
Intriguing.
Which was an episode of 7 that he directed. It's a sequel to as well.
That's good. That's good. Because I know he died in 2007, I believe.
2006.
Was it 06?
Yeah, end of 06 in November.
Okay. Yeah, because he directed a segment in 10 Nights of Dreams, which came out in 07. And that was his last directorial work done by him. I didn't know it was posthumous, but that's interesting. So he was directing Max like right before he probably directed Max and did the portion of 10 Nights of Dreams and then passed away later that year.
Yeah.
Okay. How's Kamen Rider V3 coming along?
Good fun. I watched the last episodes that feature reappearance from Kamen Rider 1 and 2, and any episode with Takeshi Hongo and Hayato Ichimonji are very, very good episodes.
Is it like how in the Showa Ultraman, like when the Ultraman from past seasons come in for an episode, it's like, oh, this is going to be a great episode.
Yes.
Kind of like that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, it happens in like the original Kamen Rider because like once Takeshi Hongo, comes back, he only comes back for guest appearances at first. before taking the reins of the show again. And then Hayato disappears, but he comes back for a select few special episodes that are all really banger episodes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then how's Shinkager?
Shinkenger. It's been pretty good.
Okay.
I haven't had as much time to watch that as the other two, admittedly.
Gotcha.
Because Max and V3 have sort of grabbed me more. Shinkenger is good. I'm just not like super wowed by like the Sentai formula, I think.
Right.
At least not at the moment. But
Gotcha.
I have like just been introduced to the 6th Ranger, the gold one. So that's cool.
Okay. Any other Toku, or has that just been your main focus, is getting your TV shows knocked out?
Well, I did actually rewatch Godzilla 2000 the other day.
I need to rewatch that one.
Yeah. I mean, 2000, I haven't seen that in like about 4 years alongside most of the Millennium films. Like, I rewatched GMK recently because, like, that was way overdue.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was just kind of in the mood. I'm like, I should put on 2000. And so I did, and I actually put on the Japanese cut, so this is actually the first time I've seen that version of the film.
Oh.
So now I've officially seen every Japanese cut of every Godzilla film at least once.
There you go. And see, I'm hoping, so, like, the fact that I've watched 5 movies today, like, I realize that I need to watch more. So I'm hoping that I can start picking up the pace and watching more. I counted, because I have the list from all the Toku I watched last year. I watched 24 movies and 2 short films. I'm hoping that this year I can beat that.
Yeah.
With what I've watched today, now I have 16 Toku movies under my belt, so I just have to watch 9 more to like hit that goal. So I'm thinking that every week now I need to set aside like time to watch 2 movies. 2 movies a week. Because it just, like, I miss watching movies. I had so much fun just watching movies. Like, it's my drug. I feel better after watching movies.
Mine too, man.
And I feel like there was another movie I watched.
Oh, really? Really now?
Oh, I forgot to tell you. This is what it was. I got to go see Shin Kamen Rider in theaters. They showed that.
Whoa.
Yeah, in theaters. They had two days of showings. And I got to go see it.
Nice. I you know what's crazy?
What?
I, against all the odds, also got to see it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, wow, I didn't know they were showing it in Australia. That's really cool. Okay. So, okay. The first time I got to see it, it was like 30 minutes down the road. It was so fun. Man, since we watched it, we should do an episode on Shin Kamen Rider.
We should. That's a great idea. Why didn't I think of that?
I don't know. Maybe because I'm the one with all the good ideas.
Wow, okay. Okay.
So, what are we covering this episode? I forget. Cut this part out. I don't know what we're covering.
Well, since you don't remember, I say we just scrap whatever film we were going to talk about, and just instead let's cover Shin Kamen Rider, baby.
That's a great idea, Rex. Man, look at you having the best idea out here. Look at that.
I know. I'm great.
So,
Please
okay.
clap, audience.
Yeah. Hang on. We gotta. So, Rex, I need you to say we're gonna cover Shin Kamen Rider, and we're gonna have a gap for them to clap their hands. 3, 2, 1, and go.
And on today's episode of Kaiju Conversation, we are covering Shin Kamen Rider.
You think that's good enough?
That was absolutely horrendous. Let's keep going.
So yes, today we are covering Shin Kamen Rider.
Why do you say it like that?
I had to mimic the Fathom Events showing of Shin Ultraman, where the dude they had at the beginning kept saying Shin Ultraman. Except this time it's Shin Kamen Rider.
I've never understood why you've said it that way.
I just want to annoy the people that are like, it's Shin! It's Shin! It's Shin, you moron! Shin Kamen Rider. Then again, they do say Kamen Rider in the movie.
Kamen.
Kamen Rider.
Kamen.
Kamen Rider. So now that we're past the weeb part of this, so
let's never go weeb again.
Let me tell you something. For reasons that I can't talk about publicly, I had to go watch it a second time. I had to drive to another state to go watch this movie again. So I had to switch shifts so I could have enough time to get off work and drive to another state to go watch this movie in. So I did. I swapped a shift. I got in my car and I drove like an hour and a half to go to another state.
What? Another state?
So I went to another state. I got to the theater. I forgot my pen and paper, so I had to go buy one at the local Walmart that was down the road from that movie theater. Then I came back and I had to walk a block because the parking spot was like a block away. I had to walk to the theater. I get down and I watch the movie. And then I pack up myself and my stuff and I leave. But here's something that's funny that happened. So as I'm leaving, I'm back on my phone and I'm turning off theater mode and do not disturb, and I'm checking all my notifications to see if anybody's like, why are you in another state? And to my surprise, I get a message, and it's somebody I met when I got to go see Yuzo, Biggest Battle in Tokyo. I made some friends. Look at that. I made some friends. And I didn't have to travel to another state, but I still had to travel like 40 minutes to go see Yuzo. And I get a message from somebody that I met at that showing, and he said, "Hey, Elijah, are you at this theater watching Shin Kamen Rider?" And I was like, wait a minute. Yeah? Why? And he's like, I thought I recognized you. I saw you up there, and I was just going to say hi. And the reason he recognized me is I just so happen to wear my Tetsuo the Iron Man shirt. Oh my god,
I knew it.
And I wore that to go see Yuzo as well. So, like, I was wearing the same shirt. That's gonna be my
shirt
staple.
You wore at G-Fest as well.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that's officially like my shirt. So it's coming with me again.
What happens
Chicago.
when it gets faded?
I'll have to get back to you on that one. You just ruined my mood. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I'm sorry, I didn't see your message till now. I would have came and said hi. But that was really weird and kind of cool that I drove us to another state and somebody somehow recognized me. I was like, what are the odds here? It was actually the guy who I met, it was his second viewing too, which was pretty cool. So we talked a little bit about the film and whatnot.
Fancy that.
So that was really cool. But yeah, I had to travel states, Rex. But I'm really excited to talk about Shin Kamen Rider in all seriousness. I know we were hoping it would get released. I know specifically you watched Kamen Rider and read the manga in preparation for seeing Shin Kamen Rider.
Hell, I even was reading the prequel manga to Shin Kamen Rider.
You've been watching V3, which I feel like might be relevant. I don't know. I am the rookie.
A little bit.
So full disclosure, I know very little about Kamen Rider. I know a few things about a few shows. I have never watched a single episode of Kamen Rider, so this is my entryway into Kamen Rider.
The gateway drug, if you will.
Mm-hmm. I haven't even, my friends, Nathan Marchand and Travis Alexander, have a podcast called Henshin Men, and I've been on the show, but I've never listened to an episode because I don't want to have Kamen Rider spoiled for me. So I know very...
Just watch it, man.
If it comes to Blu-ray, I'm honestly, like, swear to God, I'm waiting for Shout to announce a Blu-ray. If Shout were to announce a Blu-ray, I would buy it, and I would watch it, and then I'd watch Kamen Rider V3. And then I'd probably have to skip around. I know whenever Media Blasters puts out J, Zio, Shin Prologue, the next and the first, I will watch those. I probably won't understand, and those are all, like, versions of, in air quotes, of Shin Kamen Rider. I will watch those. But I'm hoping that I can see Kamen Rider 71 before then, but I don't know. It kind of seems less and less likely every month that goes by that Shout Factory does not say, hey, here for the first time in the United States is a Blu-ray box set of all 93 episodes of Kamen Rider plus the movie. It's 93 plus a movie, right?
98.
98?
98 episodes.
I knew it was
plus
in the 90s.
2 short films.
Oh, is it 2?
Yeah. Kamen Rider vs. Shocker and Kamen Rider vs. Ambassador Hell.
Now, Shocker was in between 53 and 54, right?
Yeah, around that.
And then Ambassador Hell, that was the final, right?
No.
Finale?
No. That is like around like the, I want to say, I think it's before or after episode 69.
Okay. Now,
but
one thing
Ambassador Hell was still a villain until like episode 79.
Gotcha. So that leads me into my question. So one thing I do know, and this is this is where most of my knowledge of Kamen Rider comes from, and I don't know if this is an insult or not. I have watched the entirety of Kikaida plus the Kikaida 3D movie.
Yeah.
And that's what my knowledge of Shotaro Ishinomori and Toei in the early 70s and that trope of a motorcycle riding hero is.
Okay.
Is that, like, that when I think of Kamen Rider, I basically think, okay, Kikaida, but a little different.
Right.
The Kikaida movie is not canon, really. It's never referenced. It just kind of happened. Is that the same for the 2 Kamen Rider movies?
I mean, for like later Kamen Rider movies, like for like the Heisei ones, yeah, a lot of them are like alternate endings and things, like the Thighs movie, completely different ending to the show. But in the case of like Kamen Rider vs. Ambassador Hell and vs. Shocker, like those, there is one very small contradiction in Kamen Rider vs. Shocker, where like one kaijin appears earlier than they should, and like, and there's another where like there's one kaijin that technically shouldn't be there because it wasn't created by Shocker, but like there's 2 very minor continuity errors. And,
Gotcha.
But that's really about it. There's no reason why it can't conflict, because they're basically just extra episodes of the show that are slightly longer and look absolutely gorgeous.
Okay, gotcha.
Because they're in 4K widescreen and they're very colorful. Well, the new transfers are in 4K. They look gorgeous.
Gotcha. So, without further ado, I feel like we should go into Shin Kamen Rider because I feel like this might end up being a pretty long discussion.
It is a long recording. I'm gonna die.
To be fair, the first hour is just babbling. Hour
Even
and 3
still.
minutes. Yeah. So I'm just gonna get off with kind of the beginning production here. Okay. I don't know a whole lot, so I'm just going to set the stage, and Rex, you you can school me and tell me where I'm right and wrong.
Okay.
The first thing is this is the 50th anniversary celebration of Kamen Rider.
Yeah.
It was planned for a 2021 release, but due to COVID, everything got delayed.
Screwed up.
Yeah, till 2022.
Yes.
Because filming was, I want to say it was like October 2022 through January.
October 2021.
Yes, 2021.
If it finished filming in January 2023, by God, would have been that would have been like Megalon type post production.
This is true. But actually, the beginning ideas of this movie started way back in 2012 with Evangelion 3.0.
Yeah.
And that was because Anno and producer of Toei, I don't remember his name, but they got together and talked about it.
Ki.
Thank you. But one interesting thing about this Shin movie compared to the other three is Shinji Higuchi's not present whatsoever.
Yeah.
Higuchi did work on the designs for Kamen Rider Black Sun, but he didn't do anything for Shin Kamen Rider, which is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised by that when they, announced that Shinji Higuchi had no involvement. From what I understand, he just wasn't contacted for it.
He was probably too busy. Actually,
I've read interviews with him for Black Sun's production, and it sounds like he just was never contacted for Shin Kamen Rider. They did, contact. I think it was Kiyotaka Taguchi, who was the special effects director for Black Sun, that got him involved in that project. Because I think, if I remember right, he sent in the good word about Higuchi to, one of the producers, probably Shirakura.
Okay.
Yeah. From what I remember, I could be getting a couple of the details there wrong.
Gotcha. So, I that's really all I know about the production of this film. Is there anything I feel like that's a pretty basic outline. So, if you want to set the stage any further, go right on ahead.
Yeah, there's not a huge amount to really tell a whole story about the incredible production of this film. There's a lot of anecdotes, small anecdotes that I'm sure we'll be able to talk about through this, because I can guarantee you some of them will definitely be relevant later to what I have to say on the film. But yeah, I wouldn't say the production was. But now I'll say the production wasn't hugely smooth. It wasn't a disaster by any means, but there were definitely scenes. There were definitely some scenes that were reshot and things that we'll probably talk about a bit later on. I don't quite want to get into that just yet.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. So in that case, I guess we can go ahead and dive into Shin Kamen Rider. So right away, I just want to say that I was kind of taken away by how quickly we're just thrown
this
in.
opening scene.
it just we are thrown right into a motorcycle chase, being chased by some trucks.
Yeah.
And so I've not watched any Kamen Rider. So throughout this, I'm trying to understand. What does this mean? What does this mean? So from my understanding, based off of Kikaida, a professor and his daughter are like a duo, and they work for an evil organization, and they know they do. So they create the ultimate machine to defeat that organization, this being Kamen Rider, and they get out. and Shocker finds out, and they're chasing them. And specifically, their Kaijin, I guess is what they're called. In this movie, they're called Augs.
Yeah, augments.
Spider Aug, which in the original Kamen Rider was Spider-Man, is chasing after Kamen Rider and Ruriko.
Yeah.
And an explosion happens because they blockade the twisty, curvy mountain road they're on, which causes Kamen Rider, Ruriko, and the motorcycle to go flying.
Yeah.
And in much of a Showa-era tokusatsu henshin fashion, they look like they're flying 50 feet, but it's like a soft landing.
Yeah. You get some miniature effects too for the trucks.
I thought they were miniature effects.
Yeah, they are.
And then we are quickly thrown into some action again with Spider Aug trying to take Ruriko, and then Kamen Rider appears and just starts beating the living crap out of all of the henchmen. Which there's a lot of blood splatter, which I was really surprised by.
This fight is brutal. This is also, like almost straight out of borderline something straight out of Versus almost.
I actually wrote the like action and the quick cuts in the violence reminded me a lot of Ryuei Kitamura.
Yeah, this fight scene and one that happens like about 10 minutes later are so they feel straight out of Versus.
They do. And so I was really intrigued by that. But one thing I was a little surprised by is, and this is something I figured out on my rewatch, the blood kind of disappears. There's a few moments where like Kamen Rider gets bloodied, but after this, the blood kind of disappears.
You mean like from the film as a whole?
Yes. There's not a lot of bloody fights following this.
I had heard that complaint. And I'd somewhat agree to an extent where the rest of the film is not quite as bloody. But at the same time, there is still a fair bit of blood like in the following action sequences. The final fight has some blood. The next fight after like this whole opening sequence is over, the second Kaijin, his defeat has a bit of blood. It's not really that the film goes bloodless. It's just that kind of after the first 15 minutes, most of the henchmen just disappear.
Right.
Outside of like the female ones. And actually, I noticed in one scene, if you're paying attention, the scene starts with the henchmen there, but they disappear later because the fight scene with them was actually cut from the film. Oh. So like they're in the scene, and then they're just not. And I'll tell you which scene that is a bit later.
Okay. So Kamen Rider like beats all of the henchmen, grabs Ruriko, and leaves.
Yeah.
And then they end up at a log cabin. And so right away, like this fight sequence, like they're jumping, like they jump all over the place location-wise, which is done on purpose. And I appreciate that because that was a trope of specifically Toei Tokusatsu, especially, where they would be in like the city and then they'd go to a quarry, or like they're on a road and then they're in a clearing in the forest, or a little later on they're suddenly at a dam. And I like that. I love that. They're even when Kamen Rider first appears, when Spider Aug is about to take Ruriko, it cuts to Kamen Rider standing on the hill with a zoom in.
Yeah, which is a tribute to a shot from the original show.
And it's not a digital zoom in. It's a actual, they point the camera up and they zoom in, which I appreciate.
Actually, it might be a digital zoom in.
Is it? It doesn't look very
so
like it looks.
So that entire shot, I'm pretty sure, is CG.
Really?
Yes. I'm pretty
So
sure
maybe-
it's entirely a CG shot. Because the mountain, from what I understand, so it's meant to look exactly like the mountain that he stands on in the original, in that
Mhm.
shot. But, like, I'm pretty sure that mountain doesn't exist anymore. I could be wrong, but from what I understand and from what I saw of, like, the VFX reel, I'm pretty sure that shot is entirely CG. If not entirely, then the mountain is definitely CGI.
So, I mean, they could have composited the proper
Maybe.
mountain. Because it definitely doesn't, like, compared to some of the special effects later on, like, that's a really good effect then.
I mean, this film there's a lot of moments that have actually got some hidden CG that is actually really, really surprising. Like when you watch some of the behind the scenes.
I know, like, especially during the henchman fight, there's actually people wearing green suits filming with iPhones to get different angles of the fight sequence so that Anno could be like,
the final fight. Oh my god, the final fight. There's like a shot. There's like in the final fight, they've got like 9 different like cameramen with iPhones just circling around like the main actors in that fight, and they've all just been digitally removed. That stuff is actually really impressive.
Mm-hmm. It looks like I was looking to see if I could see like the floor move or something, but you really can. It's really well done.
Mm-hmm.
It's obvious that they just chroma keyed. If we're talking, because it was edited in Adobe Premiere Pro.
Mm-hmm.
They just,
as all the Shin films were,
right. They just, they put the chroma key, it's called green key, I think, is the effect preset in the effects tab on Premiere Pro. They just applied that to the footage, selected the color, and then Adobe, it's a very powerful software, so it's able to like artificially replace whatever color that is with the background. And for that fight, I think, for that like landscape, it's definitely really easy to do because it's just black with gray. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that was rather easy for them to do. Maybe it was hard to do the phones though, because I doubt the phones were all green. I bet they were, dark gray or black or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure they had to go in though and like mask over that. Do a mask and like maybe a blur, mask it, and then do the blur effect on that, and then just have that track the phone for each shot.
Either way, I love how disorienting this opening is.
with all the different,
with all the crazy action, the very little context in like this first 3 minutes.
Yes,
and just like, yeah. It's immediately attention grabbing.
It is. I'm trying to remember who it was, but there was a director. It might have been Scorsese, who said if you cannot interest your viewers in the first 3 minutes of your movie, you have lost their interest for the rest of the film.
Yeah, that was Scorsese who said that.
Okay, perfect. Look at that. I know my film quotes. And Shin Kamen Rider does it in the first 3 seconds.
Yeah.
it draws you
in that regard, absolutely.
And at least for me, like I'm then, and this might be it could be both a good and bad thing. I am left trying to figure out what is going on for the rest of the film because I know nothing about Kamen Rider. So I watch it. I'm like, whoa, there's no exposition here. What's going on? I gotta figure this out. Oh boy, there's a lot. So upon my first viewing, I was just trying to take in like all of this stuff and follow and track everything, and I was immediately drawn in.
Yeah.
So at least on my end, like it succeeded in catching my attention.
Yeah.
So after this, Kamen Rider saves Ruriko, and they go to this log cabin.
Yeah.
How, I don't know. I guess it's just like a show trope to just go there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're shown Kamen Rider looking in a mirror, and he takes off one of the gloves and he takes off the helmet, and
you see his grasshopper, a bit of his grasshopper form, all his scars, enhancements.
So this is where I'm a little confused. We also get some flashbacks. So I know in Kamen Rider Shin Prologue, Kamen Rider is an actual grasshopper. Who, like, he does the American Werewolf in London transformation from a human to a grasshopper. Was that what Inshinomori wanted, but due to budget constraints, they couldn't do that, so they had him just have a suit on? Like, explain to me why in Kamen Rider Shin Prologue he's a grasshopper. In the original Kamen Rider, I'm pretty sure it's just a guy.
I mean, it's not really that it's just a guy. It's a guy who's been kidnapped by Shocker and has been given cyborg enhancements, essentially.
Okay.
So, and that's the same with all the other Shocker Kaijin in Kamen Rider. I mean, they're really, in the show, they're usually called Kaizo Ningen, which basically just means, like, cyborgs. It's just that in the show, Kamen Rider looks a lot more cyborg-like. Meanwhile, the Shocker Kaijin tend to look more monstrous-like.
Right. And I know they're all kind of like bug-related because Inshinomori liked insects.
A lot of them are, but like there's a lot of like other types. Like there's chameleons, there's like hedgehogs, there's cobras, yep, tigers, all that sort of stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah, so like in Kikaida, everything's a robot. Even Kikaida's a robot. He just has a human form he can transform to hide himself.
Yeah. In Kamen Rider, it's mostly cyborgs. There are a couple exceptions with like, there's like a dinosaur that Shocker wakes up, and also a like an Egyptian monster thing in one episode as well, from what I remember. But generally, it's Shocker cyborgs.
Gotcha.
So just cybernetically enhanced people.
So from what I'm understanding here, so his human form is what he looked like before he was abducted.
Yeah.
And then with the cybernetic enhancements, it turns him from a human to a grasshopper-esque looking character.
Yeah.
And to mask that in all reality, to keep the budget low in the original show, he has armor he wears. Right?
I guess it's... Well, look, the first show is not really all that concerned about the details. There's no, like, grasshopper hand or grasshopper face in the original. In the manga, he does have scars from, like, the surgery that do end up appearing, like, whenever he's at, like, very stressed. But in the show, it's just like his normal human face whenever he's not transformed, you know?
Gotcha. So that's why in both actual Shin movies, they make it a point to show the grasshopper transformation, whether it's entirely or partially.
Yeah.
Okay. See, I know a little bit. I just don't, I don't know everything, so...
Yeah. No, don't worry. Because, like, because some of the kaijin in this sorta are in a similar boat to Hongo, where like they actually have like pretty much all of them have like mutated like forms. Obviously, Spider, he's wearing like a helmet and like a lot of leather clothes, but underneath he does have like a spider-like form.
Gotcha.
It's just not shown in the movie. It's only shown in the manga.
Gotcha.
Oh, and he has... I guess he also does have the extra hands.
Right, he has the extra 4 hands. Or 2 hands. Speaking of that, so after this, he puts the mask stuff back on, and then we get a lot of exposition for the next few minutes, which is really nice for me because, like I said, I have no idea what's going on.
And it's from one of your favorite directors.
Yes. So, from here, Ruriko and Hongo are in like the main part of this house when Dr.
Midorikawa,
played by Shinya Tsukamoto. And for anybody who doesn't know who that is, if you're listening to the show and you don't know who Shinya Tsukamoto is, maybe you should go back and listen to more episodes.
Yes, please do.
So he's a director, first and foremost. He directed The Adventures of Denshu Kozo, Tetsuo the Iron Man, Hikaru the Goblin, Tetsuo 2 Body Hammer, Tetsuo the Bullet Man, Ballet, Vital, Snake of June, Killing, Fire on the Plains, the remake. He's done a lot. Mm-hmm. But he's also been an actor in all 3 Tetsuo movies, in Takashi Miike's Dead or Alive 2 Birds, Ichi the Killer, Maribito, and for all you Kaiju fans, he was the pink towel guy in Shin Godzilla. So seeing him was great. He was in the trailer, so I knew he was there.
Yeah.
But I
remember when we thought he was going to play the Bat.
That's right. We did talk about that. But I was thrilled to see him as like the inventor of the AUG concept, correct?
He's one of the main researchers behind like discovering prana and how it works. Gotcha. Which in this film is like basically like, I guess the way I understand it is sort of like the energy of the soul, mm-hmm. in a way. And that's what gives Kamen Rider, as well as all the other augments, their powers, essentially, right. Their strength.
But Kamen Rider, who it feels like is the strongest, he has to have a device that's powered by wind to control that, or else he'll die.
Yeah.
And the helmet helps control that as well. Mm-hmm. That's all said in the exposition dump where they do the science babble. I tried to follow along. I listened. I watched. I read the subtitles. And during this, suddenly Spider comes down after they mention Spider-Og. And that's when Hongo finds out that Spider-Og knows where they're at. And Ruriko was planted with a colony of spider drones. She suddenly passes out and they all crawl out from under her.
Mm-hmm. To be fair, they did make a point of showing the first one crawling on her earlier.
Did they? I don't remember.
Yeah, it's like just when Kamen Rider first shows up to brutalize everyone.
Gotcha.
The shot of her like moving on the ground and you can see like a little spider crawling on her leg.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
There's a little detail I missed. So then Spider-Og appears, shoots a CGI web to hold Kamen Rider in place. But at this point, he's already transformed back to his human form. Yeah. So he's not really strong. And it's even said that if he was still in his Kamen Rider form, he could break the webs, but because he's not, he can't.
Yeah.
Ruriko is passed out, and I'm going to say Shinya Tsukamoto because that's who he is, and he will never be anybody else, is captured by Spider-Og. And while Spider-Og has him in the cabin still, they don't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm. He kills him.
He kills him, which is really sad because he dies really, 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 really fast.
Yeah, I remember like when I realized who he was going to play, I'm like, oh no, E.T.'s going to be so sad when this happens.
So he dies like that in the show?
Yeah, he dies pretty early on. When I realized who he was...
You didn't tell me? I thought it was going to be like Kikaida, where they think that he's dead, but he's actually always alive and he's safe, and he never actually dies.
What?
In Kikaida, the professor that like invented all the dark robots, and in Kikaida, they think he's always dead. They think he dies, but he's just wandering Japan.
No, he never comes back after episode 1.
Oh. So I could have expected this and not been heartbroken? Oh. Well, Shinya does say, "Please kill me." And then Spider-Og chokes him with his forearms.
Yeah.
But in this, he's also like, "Protect my daughter, and you're the only one that can save the world." But when he dies, I got some questions.
Mhm.
Like they explain it, but I'm also really confused. What's with the bubble bath? Is that in the show? Like,
Yeah, it's a reference to how sometimes in the original Kamen Rider, because of the budget, sometimes the show will get a little creative with showing the Shokugrunts dying.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, sometimes it'll just be blood splatters on a wall. But probably the most iconic way of them dying is just by turning into bubbles.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can get behind that.
It's actually a really neat effect in the show. It's like, it's just one of those like little low budget bits of creativity, and that appears a lot, especially in that first 13 episodes, which this movie takes the bulk of its inspiration from, sort of.
Okay.
Well, probably more the first 15 episodes, I'd say.
Okay. So, because I was curious about that, I was like, I wonder if they take all 98 episodes plus 2 movies, or if they're...
They definitely take elements from later episodes for some references near the end. But like the tone of this movie is more in line with the first 13 episodes, as that's what Arno found really interesting, and how sort of darker that set of episodes was.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some story beats taken from later on as well. Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah, as we go through this, if you could kind of highlight those two, that'd be perfect, because I'm really curious what we have. So
yeah,
after
because currently this is more or less just episode 1.
Okay. So after Tsukamoto's death, Spider-Og takes Ruriko and throws a bomb that blows up in like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I was actually really surprised how fast.
I appreciate a villain with efficiency.
This is true. They get out, they drive in their Honda, and then suddenly you can tell I think it's a full-blown like cabin. I don't think it's a miniature.
Oh no, it is a miniature.
It is a miniature? It's got to be a big miniature, though.
Yeah, it was, from what I remember of the footage, the behind-the-scenes footage, it looked decently sized.
They blow it up, but it's obviously you do use a phone for like a wide shot.
Yeah.
But like they blow it up and they have like 3 different angles on this explosion, and it looks really good. Mm-hmm. And my favorite thing of this is Kamen Rider just is okay.
Yeah, he just jumps out in the perfect time.
Like his armor's not dirty or on fire. He looks fine. His bike's fine. Mm. He's just like,
it is. That is the most Kamen Rider thing.
It is, and I appreciate that.
He just has so much plot armor in the show. It's actually really funny. Some of the things he survives in the original. Like
when he grows big in Ultraman versus Kamen Rider, just to fight.
Yeah.
Plot convenience.
I love Kamen Rider.
So then he gets on his bike and he chases after Spider-Og.
Yeah, and we get an awesome transformation sequence on it.
Yes, we do.
Both his bike, the Cyclone transform, and Rider's helmet also transforms to the main Rider helmet.
Which I thought looked really good. Yeah. And what I really liked, so he catches up, and he actually somehow passes them and stops them. And then from here, we get a very Showa-esque Kamen Rider fight. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, but that is the dam that they filmed on 50 years ago. Am I wrong?
You are correct. Okay. It is the dam they used. And a lot of the shots, like the way the fight actually starts, like the first few shots when he's fighting the Shokugrunts, straight up recreations of the original.
I love that. I loved how they just jumped out of nowhere, and like I love that, because that's something I recognized in Kikaida, and I'm pretty sure in Kikaida they used the same dam for a few episodes.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt that.
So like I loved seeing that. And at the end of this scene too, they show Kamen Rider driving off on it. I'm like, this looks like the Showa like Kamen Rider. Just in HD and widescreen. I was like, this is the perfect, stylistically speaking, this is the best Shin movie.
Oh, absolutely, honestly. And it's the most tokusatsu. It's the truest tokusatsu Shin movie as well.
It is. So we get the grunts, and I love how the grunts fight. And then we get Spider Og and Kamen Rider fighting. Now, during this, we get the beginning of the CGI flying stuff. Flying in air quotes. They're just jumping really high and like Dragon Ball Z-ing it with their kicking and whatnot.
Yeah. I mean, here I think it looks mostly fine, honestly.
It looks fine, but like...
It's noticeable, but it's not too bad.
It's not too bad.
And I mean, some really cool hidden in this sequence as well. Like how all the Shaka grunts, how they're the same height, but like when they actually filmed this, there was a wide range of different heights for the actors. Some of them were really tall, some of them were really short. So it's actually really cool to see how, they all look even in the final shot.
Right. That's interesting. I didn't know that. That's actually really cool.
I'll have to send you like the VFX reels.
Please do. I'd be really curious to see like the effects behind this film, because you are right. This is the most tokusatsu of all of the Shin movies.
I mean, just the fact that we've had like multiple miniature shots that were very noticeable as well. Yes.
And noticeable in a good way. They look like miniatures, and they don't look fake. They look like miniatures, which is great. There's a difference, I think, between miniatures and looking fake. Like in Death Kappa, that city is kind of made to look fake. Miniatures are made to look real, but they have a special style, and that special style is beautiful.
Yeah.
So during the Spider Og and Kamen Rider fight, we get what I thought was really cool. So this is my first ever Henshin kick I've ever seen. And I was like, oh my God, this thing is like really dramatic, but it's so cool. Like that is the signature Kamen Rider thing, is the Henshin kick.
Well, the Rider kick.
Right, the Rider kick. And I was like, dude, this is so cool. I love how he's like flying across the entirety of this dam to kick Spider Og.
It's awesome. And I mean, frankly, in the original show, the Rider kicks aren't as cool, sadly.
Right, but I mean, they were very limited.
Yeah.
It's very much like, to my understanding, it's like how Showa Ultraman had a low angle shot of the Ultra like doing twists and kicks. Leo even had the Rider kick. I believe it was Leo. It might have been Taro, but one of those. It was probably Leo. One of those had it where an Ultra would do a kick and like they would rotoscope. They would color on like flames on the kick.
Yeah,
he was doing it.
They would do that in some later Kamen Rider shows. Like Kamen Rider Black has like a flame effect on the kick, but like the original Kamen Rider is a bit more, I guess, raw in how it's done. It's very... I guess the word I want to say is shoddy, but that's not quite the word I'm looking for.
Guerrilla filmmaking?
I guess, in a sense. It's very unrefined. Not as impactful as it would become in later shows, but it's still an iconic staple of the series,
right?
Especially when they'd introduced the double rider kick and all that.
Okay, so Kamen Rider obliterates Spider Og.
Yeah.
And then we get some more exposition between Ruriko and Hongo, where they kind of go back and forth, and to me it seems like this first act is about Ruriko. The 3 acts to this film, the first part's about Ruriko and her story, and we get a lot of understanding her relationship with her father and how the rest of this film kind of develops, which I appreciate. And like I said, from here we get a great shot of Kamen Rider driving off, looking very Showa-esque.
Yeah.
And as he's driving off, we get a really, really, really cool cameo. So I should explain why I'm really excited about this cameo. So my Discord profile that you can see on the Kaiju Conversation Discord server for the last 5 years, it's not been 5 years, it's 3. The last 3 years has been a Toei superhero that I've never watched, but he looks so cool and I would love to watch it. And it's Robot Detective K.
Yes.
And Anno integrated Robot Detective K into Kamen Rider as this. He's not a villain, but he works. He's with the villains.
Yeah.
He's a robot that's designed to observe and be a detective and figuring out how humans function. Really cool. Just watch and observe.
Yeah.
And figure out what makes them happy. And I really find it so cool how he's watching how Hongo and Ruriko and Ichimonji eventually, how they view happiness, and how Spider Og and Bat Og and Cobra Og, or I guess not Cobra Og, but Mantis Chameleon Og and all that, how they find happiness. I just think that's really cool.
It was so awesome. I remember back before the film came out, everyone was shocked when he appeared in this prequel manga. And we're
it's really
what?
Cool. And I love how he puts a rose in for the people and the Ogs that he cared about, in air quotes.
Yeah.
That's a really cool detail. And when you watch his animation, because he's fully animated, they have it so it's a little jumpy, so he looks like a robot moving, which is a cool little effect. I mean, it kind of looks a little wonky, but I think it's a cool effect nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
So from here we go to Hongo and Ruriko walking to this building, and I love it's a small detail here, but I love it. So while they're walking to the building, Cyclone is driving itself behind like a little puppy. And I was just like, oh my God, that's so I love that. It's a tiny little detail, but it's so little Cyclone.
I remembered hearing about that and was so excited for that.
It's great. It's a subtle detail that I don't think anybody really would acknowledge, but I loved it.
I don't think it's acknowledged by any of the characters in the film either.
It's not. It's not.
Probably,
and how
it's probably a tribute to Kamen Rider Black, honestly, because the bike in that was like a living organism in and of itself.
So, they do say at the beginning of the film, Shinya Tsukamoto's character says that the bike is wired to be
to pair with the
helmet,
and the chest.
Mm-hmm. But either way, it's still really cool that he's the bike is his own character, and he's basically indestructible. He goes through the explosion fine, and he flies off the mountain fine, and all this, and he's so just good. Fine.
So good.
So from here, they go into this penthouse where they're supposed to be safe, and two government officials are here waiting on them. And Ruriko, who's established, doesn't trust people but is always prepared, talks to them, finds out who they are. They're the anti-shocker unit. Yeah. And they make a deal that they'll follow Ruriko and Hongo.
Interesting cast members.
Yes. I want us at the end of this to talk about them, because at the end is where I think the biggest discussion is for their characters is.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a little reveal.
There is. So they talk about Shocker, and in this we get a flashback sequence talking about the founding of Shocker. And in this, so I don't know how accurate this is. So Rex, I want you to talk about it, but I have a question.
Okay.
Does Robot Detective J exist, or is that like an original character? I don't know about J. I know about K. So teach me.
So, for the audience that hasn't seen the movie, basically, in this scene, we discover that the founder of Shocker was a rich billionaire who funded, drafted, and created an AI program known as Shocker is intent on sort of leading mankind to pure happiness. That's what they say. I create an AI program called J to help it monitor the outside world, basically feeding it information on things. But J would eventually later would be later replaced with K. So this J is actually a reference to the early version of Robot Detective K, there's photos of like an old suit 4K that instead of having like the logo K on his belt had the letter J. And I don't remember the exact name they had for him, but I think it was like Joe or something was one of the early names for K. So yeah, it's just a reference to like the early version of Robot Detective K.
Now, did Jay make an appearance?
No,
or was that like a concept?
It's just an early like name for him, where he was called like the Joker and all that. Although his car would later be named the Joker. It also might be a Kakaida reference, having Jay's face in this film being split in two.
Yes, I noticed that too. Because one half is like wires and the other side's complete.
Yeah.
Kind of like Kakaida, except Kakaida is a little more drastic, a little different.
Yeah.
It is a cool little visual Easter egg, but I was very confused on the J and K thing. I got K, but I didn't know what J was.
Yeah, no, J was just like an early like name for Kakaida, pretty much. Or not Kakaida,
Gotcha.
K.
Gotcha. So in the flashback too, did you bring up, is it I?
Yeah.
Okay. Which I thought was interesting, like this supercomputer that that's
setting
like
up for a sequel.
Yeah.
I know where that goes.
So what I really like, and I don't know, like at this point it's clear that Shocker is an establishment of like an AI, which is really cool because pre-cast we were talking about like, could we do an AI episode with how much audio we have of us talking? Like, could we create an entire episode just based off of what we've already done?
AI is terrifying.
It is.
Kind of makes this movie a bit more relevant and makes a potential sequel potentially very relevant to the modern times.
That's what's really cool is like Shocker in this is an AI that's designed to help humanity, which is what AI is supposed to be.
Well, not Shocker in and of itself, but like Shocker is being led by the AI.
Right. An AI designed to figure out how to help humanity and make it happy.
Yeah.
Shocker's abbreviations are even
Sustainable Happiness Organization with Computational Knowledge Embedded Remodeling.
Which was really cool. And to my understanding, that's not what the original Shocker is. Very much just like an evil organization.
Yeah, they're literally just Nazis. Yeah. They're former Nazis. Yeah. I mean, they're in the prequel manga, there's a little bit of a Nazi thing with so in Kamen Rider, in the original show, there's like these different generals for Shocker. So there's like Ambassador Hell, there's Dr. Shinigami, played by Hideo Amamoto, and then there's called Colonel Zoll, who was a former Nazi general or colonel. None of them sadly appear in this movie, but both Dr. Shinigami and Colonel Zoll or a version of them, have both appeared in the prequel manga, Shocker Side. And so, yeah, even though Colonel Zoll isn't a former Nazi, he is sort of like a neo-Nazi in that.
Gotcha. Okay. So...
Bear in mind, he's only just been introduced.
Okay, so in the manga...
Ongoing.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it's still ongoing. Like, the newest chapter only came out like a day or two ago, and I haven't been able to read that yet.
So is that like something that'll just be ongoing until they like decide to wrap it up, or is it like something that will tie in to Kamen Rider? Do you know?
Well, we don't know. I mean, there's ties to like Shin Kamen Rider, obviously, because like Robot Detective K's in it. There's some exposition on like Shocker, and I mean, most importantly, it gives us backstory to Kumo Og, the spider, Sasori, the scorpion Og, as well as the Midorikawa family.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. Now that I know a little bit more about Shocker, that helps explain a bit. So after this, they agree to go take down Bat Og, which has established a stadium where he's conducting research on viruses, which is that from the original show, or is that just oddly relevant to modern day society?
So, like, in the original show, he does, like, basically, he's a vampire bat, so he bites people, and in the original show, he basically takes control over everyone in a hotel building.
Okay.
And they have to find a cure.
Okay. Kind of like Wasp Og in this movie?
Yeah, sort of, actually, yeah.
Okay. Because I was like, man, this is oddly relevant to, like, recent events. Which, by the way, Bat Og looks really cool. I love the makeup and prosthetics.
For him, yeah.
And I love
the suit he's wearing, too. Especially with the hat.
The suit's very stylish. I'm going to just say this now. I love the suits for every Og, Kamen Rider. Like, they all look great.
I love the costume design for this movie. There was one I did not like at first, but I have grown to sort of like it a bit more.
Okay. If you want to hold off on revealing that till we get to... Okay. Okay. We'll continue. So, I mean, I love the Bat Og thing. So Ruriko goes in solo. This is where we're introduced to K again, which I love his presence. Like, he's so just nice there to watch. He doesn't stop Ruriko, even though Ruriko pulls out a gun. Like, he's just like, I'm here to watch. You look great. It's like, wow, I love his character. Like, I could get behind him as a character. And then we find out Bat Og has his hypnotic virus that he's completed and he's going to use.
He also has like some robots.
he has some robots. And then Ruriko fails, and this is Hongo's like call to action moment in the movie.
Where he has to prove himself because Ruriko, she went on her own because she did not trust Hongo's dedication to fight.
And I forgot to mention this earlier. It's established that Hongo does not like violence, and he doesn't want to kill people. Yeah. He wants to help people. But
he's a very, very, very kind man, almost basically being both his strongest asset and his biggest weakness.
And it's something that he has to overcome that kindness in his call to action to save Ruriko. But it's almost like Ruriko had this planned, because Kamen Rider shows up and he just drives in. Like, he drives in and he's on a stage. It's like, man, this feels very Kamen Rider-esque. Like, this just feels right.
I love how theatrical this movie gets with it at times.
It does. And actually, remind me, I'm going to write a note real quick, because there's something about theatricalness and later on that I wanted to bring up that I really liked and noticed.
Interesting.
So we were introduced to a stadium full of Rurikos and Man-Bats standing upside down watching. And this is where he's like, you need to surrender to my virus, and you can be my slave, which Hongo obliges by, and he's told to kill Ruriko. And then this is where it seems like Ruriko knew everything was going to happen and planned it out, and so they end up besting Bat-Og.
Yeah, because she rewrote the code or something for his virus.
Yes. So is that okay? Ruriko in this movie is really weird, and I'm like, there's an obvious thing that we'll talk about in the next sequence, I believe. But before that, is she always like this, like armed and prepared and like knowledgeable in the show, or is this like something?
Oh God, no!
So
she's basically just the damsel in distress in the original show. Like the only like substantial. So in the original show, she's only in the first 13 episodes.
Okay.
It's said in episode 14 that she goes to help fight Shocker with Takeshi Hongo when he goes to like, I think he went to South America or Switzerland or something. I don't quite remember. But yeah, and that's the last she's ever mentioned. Because Kamen Rider, there's a bunch of female characters, and all of them get replaced again and again throughout the show.
So is all of this like brand new, or what was it like in the manga, or what? Where did Ruriko's character, besides the name and backstory, like where did this come from?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have pointed to Evangelion, with Ruriko's character being a lot like Rei, sort of like the short-haired girl, who's very quiet, doesn't trust a lot of people, but eventually through her interactions with the main character, sort of grows to be a bit more trusting and open with people. I'll say that a lot of people, when it first came out, were making a lot of Evangelion comparisons to this movie.
See, I don't see that.
Very little bit, but it's way overblown.
I'll be honest, like I don't feel any Eva in this movie.
I only feel it a little bit if I squint my eyes a bit.
Like, and this is something I appreciate about this movie is I don't feel Shin Godzilla or Evangelion. I do, like, there is an obvious Shin Ultraman thing that I'm going to bring up here pretty soon. But honestly, this movie does not feel like any of Anno's other Shin movies. And I love that. It kind of reminds me of Cutie Honey. I would agree and disagree with that not feeling like all the Shin movies, because there's one thing I want to bring up later where I feel like there is one thing that's been very consistent across the three movies, that like it's one issue that a lot of people have brought up for all of them that I think is interesting. Okay.
But we'll talk about that a bit later, I'd say.
Okay. So, I had a thought. Where did it go?
Shin Ultraman?
Oh, I was going to bring up, like, to me, honestly, the thing this reminds me the most of is Cutie Honey.
Oh, right.
Like, I mean, it's when we covered Cutie Honey, we brought up Kamen Rider a lot. Mm-hmm. And I kind of feel like that is definitely the precursor to Shin Kamen Rider in many regards here, because Cutie Honey has the same, like, there's your henchman, and like the hero appears at the top of the building and the zoom in, and like a lot of those.
I mean, the first fight of Cutie Honey recreates the first fight, shots from the first fight in Kamen Rider, which that fight is also has other shots recreated in this film during the spider augment sequence. So, like, I kind of want to watch Cutie Honey and then watch Shin Kamen Rider right after to see, like, because, like, there's almost a 20-year gap there.
like, I'm really curious to see how he's adapted in 20 years for that, like, early 70s Henshin hero Showa movie adapting a television show, because that's undoubtedly what Cutie Honey is supposed to be, beyond adapting an animation or an anime.
Yeah.
But going back into the movie, I love the Man-Bat sequence. Like, once Man-Bat realizes he's screwed, he flies off, and then...
I love how she pulls out a shotgun.
Just out of nowhere.
I remember the scene earlier when she was talking to one of the government officials, where she's like, they give her a gun, and she's like, I need a spare magazine. Gives it to her, and she's like, I'm always prepared. I'm going to need another gun. And then in this scene, she pulls out her second gun. I love that.
It's really funny.
Chekhov's gun, set up and payoff.
And then, so this is where we get Cyclone flying, too, during the fight.
Yeah.
So in Kikaida's bike, it flies.
Yeah.
So when Man-Bat was flying away and he was like, ha, I can fly higher than you can jump. What are you going to do? I was like, please, for the love of God, have Cyclone fly. And that's what happened. I was like, yes, yes, yes. I was so excited. I was like...
I burst out laughing in the sequence. I love it. It's so perfect.
I loved it. I was so happy with it. And then it ends with, like, another, like, rider kick.
Yeah.
Which, like, absolutely destroys the Bat Dog.
Bro, there's so much blood that comes out of his foot.
Yeah. And this is where I feel like I caught I did see an Eva reference here, potentially. So after the fight, Hongo and Ruriko meet on a train tracks. Now, Rex, is that not the poster for Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0?
I mean... Yeah, Anno loves the visuals of train tracks, so like it's kind of just a recurring visual that appears in the rebuild of Evangelion series.
Because like I saw that, I was like, wait a minute, I've seen this before.
Yeah.
And I was trying to figure out, and I want to say it was the 3.0 plus 1.0 poster.
Yeah,
but I don't remember.
Yeah. No, it is. It is on one of the posters for that film.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's a poster of Shinji just walking across the train tracks.
But I was like, oh, that's really cool. And you can actually still see the blood on Hongo's boot.
Yeah.
Which is a really cool, like, little detail. Also, at this point, has he said he's already brought up that he's called Kamen Rider, right? Like, that's something he says during...
in the Spider-Roll sequence.
So this is a nitpick, and that's why I don't think I brought it up before.
Oh,
but
I think I know what this is.
The subtitles for the English release...
They call him Masked
Rider. Felt the need to call him Masked Rider, even though it's marketed as Shin Kamen Rider. He's like Kamen Rider. But in the subs, it's Masked Rider. I'm like, why? Why?
It was probably... these subs were probably supplied by Toei.
They were. But the dude who made him, his name's Chad, and he got credit like he should, and actually Matt brought this up in a stream he did. But there's some stuff at the end that should have been subtitled that was not, that I was pissed about.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to talk about those once we get there, but we still have like 2/3 of the movie to get through to talk about that.
Mm-hmm. I've heard a little bit of criticism for some of the subtitle choices in this. Obviously the Masked Rider thing. That might, to be fair, that could also be like Toei influenced as well with them.
Right, because
like
Toei does
the
push Masked Rider
title. They push it for
merchandise.
For like the 70s Kamen Rider stuff, or 70s to like early 2000s stuff. Because that's generally what it was called. I mean, even in like some of the like shows, they were called Masked Rider. I've heard it's probably just like a trademarking thing because of like the already established trademarks.
Right.
But yeah, it is what it is.
Gotcha.
Not much we can do about it, I'm afraid.
Right. So following this, so after Man-Bat is Scorpion, or not Man-Bat, Bat-Og.
Yeah.
This is where, so they kind of slow down here, but they also speed up too. After this is Scorpion-Og, correct?
Yes.
And so Scorpion-Og appears, but she is dispatched by the Anti-Shocker organization. Now, her suit looks really cool, and I love her acting. Like, the character is really fun in what little she's in.
Yeah.
Which is really nice. It was just like, man, I enjoyed this sequence. This is really nice.
Yeah, this is a really fun sequence. And the way it ends with him just killing her off screen. That was so funny.
But I think I already brought this up, but I might have wrote it down twice. I love how established Shocker feels.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't, like, it goes in wanting you to believe that Shocker's been around for a long time. Because there's an anti-Shocker unit, there's Shocker stadiums, there's, like, all of the OGs are, like, already built, and, like, they're doing their thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in this universe, Shocker has been around for, like, a fair few years. Because, like, one of the characters that is not been introduced yet was essentially indoctrinated into Shocker when he was, like, 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And he later becomes the main villain of this film.
Right.
Oh,
which
we should also mention that Shocker is basically a cult in this film.
I feel like, wasn't there a reference? So something in the marketing referenced modern day.
Oh, yeah. So, like, the whole thing with, like, Shocker's, like, goal being, like, to leading of all of mankind to happiness, that's a reference to the Happy Science cult in Japan.
Now, that was used in 20th Century Boys, am I correct?
I wouldn't know.
Okay.
But yeah, Shocker is, like, very consistently portrayed as a cult through both this film and the manga. It's established in both that Shocker essentially exploits and like recruits the most vulnerable people in their moments of desperation. So, like, in the manga, Kumo, the spider augment, joined Shocker because he had lost all his faith in humanity from the suicide of his lover, who he feels responsible for the death of. Hongo is in despair for the death of his father. So that's partly why he's turned into Kamen Rider, but also because Midorikawa believes Hongo would be able to defeat Shocker. Sasori, the Scorpion Og, was brought in there because, well, frankly, she was abused by her father. And yeah.
So,
and Hiroshi Midorikawa, Ruiko's father, was brought in because his wife had just died. And so Shocker gave him a job. Or no, sorry. He was first introduced to Faust, which was a group related to Shocker. His wife had brain damage, so they wanted him to develop a weapon that would connect to the brain that he hoped would be able to help save his wife. But then when she died, they brought him onto Shocker to research prana, the life energy.
Gotcha. Yeah. There's a lot of lore here in that manga.
Yeah. There's a fair bit. And like, it's still ongoing.
I feel like it's going to be ongoing for a while at that point.
Oh, probably.
So, correct me if I'm wrong here, but after the Scorpion Og's death, we kind of get a bit of a slowdown here where we go through Ruriko and Hongo's relationship. Right? Or is that... No, that's after Waspog.
Yeah.
Right. But at this point in the film, we've already went through Spider Og. We've had a hint at another augment. We've had Bat Og, and then we had Scorpion Og. And at this point in the movie, I realized that the one thing that really this film definitely shares with Shin Ultraman is it's very episodic.
Yes.
It definitely feels like a compilation movie, which was something that Shin Ultraman did, which the issue that Shin Ultraman had that Shin Kamen Rider actually fixes. Like they fixed the problem was Shin Ultraman basically had two parts be the exact same thing just with different characters.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in this film, they amend that. The Ogs all have different things. They all have an end goal of bringing happiness, but it's different. Spider Og views happiness as death to everybody.
Yeah, killing humans. That's what he finds enjoyment in. That's what gives him happiness.
Bat Og finds happiness in everybody being
in superiority.
Right. And then Scorpion Og
just gets ecstasy from killing people, and also and is also spoiled in the manga as a bit of a pedo.
Okay, well there you go.
Well, she's more just horny.
I could tell. I could definitely tell.
She's very horny in the manga.
Scorpion Og specifically felt very much like a Nishimura character.
Yeah.
In her portrayal, which I appreciated, like in Nishimura films, in that Typhoon, Sushi, Nikatsu, Fever Dreams, Media Blasters era, it felt like a lot of characters were like just horny on main and very sexual in how they look and how they fought, and how like their dialogue. Yeah. And Scorpion Og definitely felt that way. And I know Anno was in a few of those as an actor, so I kind of wonder because those definitely drew inspiration from 70s tokusatsu henshin heroes.
Yeah.
Like Machine Girl, Robo Geisha definitely did. So I really do wonder if Anno was paying homage to the homages that were more intense, which Shin Kamen Rider is supposed to be more intense as well.
Perhaps. But yeah, I mean, Scorpion's design has a couple tributes in it. Not necessarily to Nishimura films, but more just to 70s Toku.
It definitely reminded me of some of the dark robots from Kikaida, but what else did it draw inspiration from?
I don't know if there's any like Kikaida references in it, but so like the emblem, like her actual Scorpion emblem is basically just the Destron logo from V3. Destron being basically the replacement group for Shocker.
Mm-hmm.
And the mask she wears is based on a character, is like inspired by the mask design of a character called Helldragon from Zubat.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So from here, Ruriko and Hongo kind of go off on their own because I mean they're told they're not needed for Scorpion Og.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of relaxing.
That there was a Scorpion Og venom that was collected by the government agents during their little sting operation. And while
Ruriko and Hongo are off doing their thing, they're just relaxing, like cooking, and here we get some more development for Hongo.
That's a little later, but yeah, that is true. They do that.
Isn't it right here? Because this is the segue into...
No, not yet. It happens... So they're just... After Scorpion's death, they're just walking through a town. They've been told that their next target is...
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Wasp.
And this town's really weird because it doesn't... Like, it looks weird. It looks like it's inside of a big building.
Yeah.
That's right. And I noticed it right away, like everybody's walking and
following
unified
them.
Lines. Yep. And then when they stop, they're like, oh, this is the doing of Waspog. And from here, they go to the Waspog Tower where we find out Waspog knows Ruriko, like personally. And And they're sent in like initially to do like a peace treaty, but it doesn't work. And they run away. And this is where they have their little like on the side of the road in the alleyway, like eating food, where we're introduced to the first weird thing about Ruriko with her eyes, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah. Her eyes glow blue.
Her eyes glow blue. And she's talking about restructuring Wasp Og's control? Or is this where she brings up the Butterfly Og?
Yeah, it's
That's
Butterfly
right.
Og.
to slow down Butterfly Og from becoming Butterfly Og.
I mean, I'm pretty sure she just said, what she said was she wanted to like finish working on his like program, which is what the sub said, which I found weird. I don't understand why she's working on. Well, okay, I can see a reason for it, because of who Butterfly Org is, but also like technically, if she's finishing his program, she's helping Shocker.
Right. No,
So
I was very.
I don't know if that's a mistake in the subtitles, if that's just what's said in the film. I don't know. I know there are a couple lines that I've been told are just wrong in how they're translated, but I don't know enough Japanese to really say if this line is wrong, if it's different lines. Yeah, I don't know.
But I also found it just really weird how Ruriko just suddenly like is coding and like gets new code. Like it does feel a little weird throughout the film how she's able to code kind of on the fly.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they did establish it a little earlier with like the man bat. They just didn't directly show it with her eyes until this sequence.
Right.
But yeah, no, I do agree. It's a little bit weird.
But here we're introduced that Hongo is kind of like that free spirit person who gets on his bike and rides and just wants to feel free. The American dream. When they're interrupted by Wasp Og's drones, which are people that are controlled. And they go back with an ultimate plan to defeat Wasp Og.
Yes, and Ruriko, she doesn't trust the plan. She comes to trust Hongo.
Which is... the development in this Wasp Og sequence is really good. So Ruriko goes to Wasp Og's tower and is on top. They're on top of the tower where she agrees to fight Wasp Og.
Notice how the shocker grunts are here.
Oh, it's this scene.
Yes.
That makes sense because they do disappear.
Yeah.
That's right.
I watched most of the NHK behind the scenes documentary. I didn't understand most of what was being said, but I did watch it. There is behind the scenes they did film a fight between Ryder and the shocker grunts here. That has been cut.
Oh.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah. It's not super noticeable, but like if you pay attention and realize that there's shocker grunts there that just disappear.
I mean, it follows suit with Showa Rider a bit, I would imagine.
I guess it's not too horrible, but if you're paying attention, you'll notice it.
Right.
I only noticed it because I noticed afterwards that like after the Spider Augment scene, the male shocker grunts never really do anything again. Because like this is their last appearance in the film. Just this one or two shot of them standing alongside Wasp.
Right. That's actually really true. And this is where Kamen Rider comes from the sky and surprises
With the help of
Waspog.
the U.S. Air Forces.
I was like, wait a minute, what? When it was a USAF, I was like, whoa, that's unexpected. Kamen Rider's doing some Iron Man stuff now. So during this sequence, I love the fight here. The fight's really cool with how fast Waspog is going. The sword fight between Waspog, Kamen Rider, and Waspog's...
Her assistant.
Yes, I love that. One thing I do think is weird, and I love how they're moving fast and Kamen Rider has to like keep track. During this fight sequence, it definitely feels a little anime with like the motions.
Yeah.
Which is which is fine. I think it's good. It works for the most part. I think it is a little jarring with the rest of the tone being Showa-esque, but it doesn't really devalue or mess anything up. It's just a little different.
Yeah, I wish they had. I wish the bit where like Hachi or Waspog actually has a mask on and they're actually fighting. I wish a bit less of that was CG. But whatever, it works fine enough.
Right. Now, during this fight specifically, I noticed that there's something in all of the fights that's really, really, really weird. What's with the pop music?
Oh, what?
Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, why is there so much pop music in all the fight sequences in this movie?
That's considered pop music? Interesting.
It felt like it.
I don't know. It's yeah, all the OGs sort of have this theme. I love it.
It's just weird. Like it's a little catchy, but it's weird that it plays every time there's a fight.
No, I love this theme.
I don't know. I just thought it was weird. But so after the sword fight and the fast fight, Hongo goes to do the ultimate henshin kick. And what I find really cool about this is Waspog is down for the count. Like, they're going to win.
Yeah.
But Hongo does not kill Waspog. Hongo leaves Waspog to live. And this is where we get more development of Ruriko having feelings. Which now really starts to show. And then this is where we find out that they grew up together. And this like really touching moment ends in a heartbreaking moment where the government officials come out of the tower. They just show up and they pull out a gun and they're like, bam.
And they shoot her with Scorpion Orc's venom.
Which kills her. And this puts Ruriko into a very emotionally unstable spot.
Yeah.
And from here, they go back to the lab or the penthouse, the secret base.
Quick thing I want to mention, though. It's really cool that they actually combined two characters into Waspog from the original show.
They did?
Yeah. So her name in this film is Hiromi. That's her actual name. Hiromi was Ruriko's best friend in the original show.
So the best friend in Waspog got combined?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what happened to her in the original show?
I think she lost like 2 more episodes. I think I'm pretty sure she disappears after episode like 15 or 16.
Does she die or does she just disappear?
Disappears. All the female characters in the show just disappear, basically.
Oh. Isn't that lovely? So after this, we kind of get Ruriko in kind of a whining, complaining mode.
Yeah.
But this is also where I think we see her most like interesting moments. So when they get back to the base, she's clearly upset. And she's like, I need to go shopping. I need clothes. You smell awful, she tells Hongo. And that he needs to take a shower and needs to get a new outfit. Which is all really funny, but also kind of nice or sad because, like, you know, she's over here, her best friend's dead, and she has nothing left, right? So the government officials get her new clothes, and she changes, and then Hongo washes his clothes, and he's waiting for Ruriko to be okay again. And then we get a really interesting moment where, and the acting here is really good. I love the acting in this scene. Yeah. Ruriko's like, never leave me. Like, no matter what, like, unless it's bathroom room sleeping. Like,
no, even when she's sleeping.
Oh, yeah, but don't do anything weird, she says.
Yeah.
Just not in the bathroom. That's the only time he can't leave her. And so in Kikaida, Jiro and the professor's daughter, who are our main characters, there's a love interest there, but Jiro is an emotionless android, so like it doesn't really, it can't work. Does Ruriko ever have that with Hongo in the original show, or is that something exclusively for Shin Kamen Rider?
I mean, so in the original show, she actually thinks that Hongo killed her father. So for the first few episodes, she actually hates Hongo and is trying to get like evidence of him killing her father, or like trying to get revenge on him or whatever. Until it's proven that no, Hongo's innocent, Shocker is the real evil.
Gotcha.
But in Kamen Rider the first, a character named Asuka Midorikawa was the lover of a man who got killed by Hongo when he was brainwashed by Shocker, or it was either him or Spider, or the Spider that killed that man. I don't quite remember. But the central relationship of that film is the love plot between Hongo and Asuka Midorikawa, but her boyfriend is actually resurrected by Shocker.
Oh, that's awkward.
As Hayato Ichimonji.
Oh, that's really awkward.
So there's a love triangle between Kamen Rider 1, 2, and Asuka Midorikawa.
Interesting. So, speaking of...
And then the sequel forgets about her, and she's never mentioned in it.
Lovely. So, speaking of Ichimonji, so after the kind of touching moment between Ruriko and Hongo, they go to bed. And in her sleep, she has a dream of her brother who says that he is fully born and that he will bring happiness, pretty much.
Yeah.
She wakes up and she's like, my brother's awake. And I'm going to be honest, I thought he was Ichimonji. I was like, is he Ichimonji? Like, is that Kamen Rider 2? Like, they kind of have an outfit that looks like it could be Kamen Rider 2. So from here,
they showed the Hayato Ichimonji earlier in the film, though.
They showed what?
They showed the actual Hayato earlier in the film.
Right, in the side, which I didn't see until later on. So Hongo and Ruriko then go to Butterfly Ogg's lair.
After being told about and being shown a ton of bodies of people who already went to the lair in an attempt to kill him.
And they're not actually dead, but their prana's gone. So they're in this like limbo state.
Yeah, their souls have been taken out of them into a realm called the Habitat World, or Habitat Realm. And yeah.
So is any of that from the original show?
No.
Okay. Is that from the manga, or is that just all like brand new?
This is brand new. This prana stuff is brand new. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Anno's world building, essentially.
Okay. So they go to the butterfly's lair. Ruriko tries to defeat Butterfly Ogg, but Butterfly Ogg has already went from the caterpillar to the butterfly. And so he's too powerful. Like, that's how they explain it, right? Like, that's how I...
Yeah, sort of. They show him in, like, his cocoon sort of state earlier in the film. But it's a bit weird. He's kind of just shown, like his face is shown as a weird hologram thing.
Which I was really confused by until
it's a bit
later
weird.
on.
I think it's just kind of a reference to how like the great leader of Shocker would be like a voice, just a commanding voice, up until he would later appear in the show in a red KKK robe. That's how he appears in the show.
I mean, fair. I was either expecting like something like that, or he would just look like Hitler.
No, they saved that for Kamen Rider
V3.
X.
Oh. So okay. So Ruriko fails to put her brother down using the prana. So Hongo like steps in and he's told to buzz off basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then
did you sleep with my sister, Hongo?
Yeah, so Ruriko passes out because of the power that her brother has. And Hongo goes and like embraces her. And this is where that question's asked. And then from here, we're actually introduced to
Hayato Ichimonji.
Which at this point I was like, oh, sweet, they are doing 2 Kamen Riders. Like, I know the story behind this. So we get our first mention of the term henshin.
Bro, straight up, this scene has so many references to Hayato's introduction. I mean, he's literally quoting what he says from the original.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. Like the Dewa Omiseshio, let me show you my henshin. That is just straight up a quote from his first scene.
I'm going to tell my
He even
girlfriend.
does his... Yes.
Let me show you my henshin.
So he does his classic henshin pose, and then he even does... and then he does his actual fighting pose from the show that the actor would do. So
we also find out he's mind-controlled, which I don't think is a part of the original show, correct?
So Shocker would rewire people's brains. So like the reason that Takeshi Hongo in the original fights Shocker is because Dr. Midorikawa took him away from Shocker and rescued him just before they were going to do the brain surgery.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. And then in the original show, Hongo rescued Hayato before the brain surgery off screen because, Hongo's actor got injured, so they had to replace him.
So, okay. So from here, Hongo and Ruriko escape. I love how Ichimonji's like, I don't know why I'm going to fight you, but I'm told to.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm way better than you.
Mm-hmm. He doesn't need the wind to transform.
Which I didn't realize that was a requirement for Hongo until this point.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so in the original, there was no... For the first 13 episodes, there's no henshin pose. Hongo transformed with, like, the power of the wind, essentially. Energizing his belt. Which in this film is explained because, like, the prana is, like, converted through the wind or something like that. I don't remember the exact words they use. But in this film, Arno sort of reinterpreted it so that just, like, Hayato just doesn't need that.
Like he's the newer version.
Yeah. But the reason in the original show why they actually introduced Hayato and introduced the henshin pose specifically was because the actor Takeshi Sasaki didn't actually have a motorbike license at the time when they started filming. So they couldn't film the henshin sequence of him on the motorbike.
And they never realized how influential that would be because that basically established like the next 50 years of Kamen Rider.
Yes.
So far from our discussion, to me it almost feels like Kamen Rider 71 is like the first Friday the 13th, where they
The
didn't really
first
have a lot
13 episodes are.
Yes. Where it's like they didn't really have what would become Friday the 13th in that first movie, but after that first movie, they figured out what they wanted to do, and that's the iconic part. But in Kamen Rider, it's the first 13 episodes, and then they kind of got the ball rolling, and since then, it's been Kamen Rider ever since.
Yeah, because like once Hayato is introduced in the original and Hongo leaves, that's sort of where the Henshin pose and all that is introduced. That's when the Shocker Generals start to get introduced. But once Hongo comes back and takes the reign again, that's where the iconic modern like design for the original Kamen Rider comes in. That's when Hongo gets his Henshin pose. And yeah, that's sort of like I guess you could call it like the Friday the 13th Part 3, this franchise. If like Hayato's arc is the Friday Part 2.
Gotcha. So, Ichimonji follows Hongo and Ruriko, and then, like, I love this part. Ichimonji, will not fight Hongo until he's fully, like, powered up, which I thought was really cool. I love Ichimonji, by the way. Like, honestly, if we're talking about characters, he's my favorite character.
I love Hayato, both the original and in this film. I love him. Kamen Rider 2 is the GOAT.
Yeah, I love him. I liked him way more than Hongo. And honestly, and this is probably the worst thing about the characters in this movie. Hongo is upstaged by every other hero character in this movie. Minus the government officials. For me, he is upstaged by Shinya Tsukamoto because it's Shinya Tsukamoto.
Oh.
But like Ruriko, like up until this point has been upstaging Hongo. And then anytime Ichimonji is on screen, I feel like Ichimonji upstages Hongo.
I don't know. I love all three of these like characters as new interpretations. I love Hongo, I love this new Hayato, and I love this new interpretation of Ruriko. It helps that Ruriko is actually doing something in this version.
Mm-hmm. So I love Ichimonji. Like honestly, he's my favorite character. He's the one I left thinking,
man, you'll love him in the original as well. Don't worry.
Good.
You won't like him in the first.
Oh.
He sucks in the first. He is the worst part of both, like, that reboot series.
Oh, great.
He is awful in those movies. He is horribly unlikable. Offensively bad.
Oh, great. So, following this, Ruriko gets off the bike, and Ichimonji and Hongo end up going to this industrialized part of wherever they're at.
Yeah.
And they do fighting in the air, they do fighting on land. Like,
yeah, they have a Dragon Ball Z type fight.
Now, during this fight, is this the same place where Ultraman and Zeton fought?
I think you mean Mephiles.
Is it? Yes, Mephiles, yes.
I definitely did think of that about that. It's not really the same, like, I mean, maybe it's the same location. It's just kind of like a factory area. I mean, here there's at least like more like clearly they're filming on location here.
Right.
There's a lot of aerial shots with it,
which I kind of have problem with because like there's you don't know what you're looking at because both V1 and V2 are kind of hard to see from aerial shots, but you know, it is what it is.
Not V1, V2. Only V3 is got the free.
So what do I call them? Because in my notes I put V1 and V2.
You ever call them Kamen Rider 1 and 2, Kamen Rider Ichigo and Nigo, or in this film it's Kamen Rider and then Kamen Rider Dai Nigo.
So it's Kamen Rider and Kamen Rider Dai Nigo.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I just call them Ichigo and Nigo because that's who they are in the original.
Right, but I want to be accurate with the names because, like, it's like Zoffy.
Dai Nigo just is like, so where like you got Kamen Rider 2 in the original, Dai Nigo is just Kamen Rider number 2.
Gotcha. Dainigo. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Hayato breaks Hongo's leg.
Yes, and I love that. So, like you brought up earlier, so the original Hongo actor had to stop filming Kamen Rider because during filming he broke his leg.
Yeah.
And he couldn't do anything. So Toei didn't recast, but they
got a temporary replacement actor in Takeshi Sasaki.
And I love the reference with what is it?
Just call him Kamen Rider Nigo.
No, I got it. Dainigo?
Yes.
Dainigo breaks Kamen Rider's leg with some blood. And it's kind of funny because for the rest of the scene, he's just kind of sitting there like...
And he's limping with his leg.
Yeah.
He's like just trying to slog over later on.
And at this point, you think, like, what are we going to do here? But Ruriko gets in front of Dainigo and has somehow been able to rewire his brain so he's no longer controlled by Shocker.
Yeah.
And brings Ichimonji back. Yes. And while they're doing that, Ruriko goes to check on Hongo. And then suddenly, I mean, you see a cloak moving. But suddenly, she gets stabbed by Mantis Chameleon Og? Is that what he's called? What is he called?
KK Og. Kamakiri Kamerion. KK Mantis Chameleon.
So the KK Og stabs Ruriko and I'm like, oh, this dude means business. This is scary. And like I honestly was in such shock that Ruriko was off guard, and in the movie she is too. She's like, I wasn't prepared. Because
she didn't even know he existed.
He's one of KK Og is one of the new Ogs that Shocker has been developing.
Yes, in a nice little reference to Gel Shocker from the original. Can
you elaborate on that?
Okay, so in the original Kamen Rider, in the first 8 episodes, 2 of the Kaijin is Deaf Chameleon and Mantis Man. They have been combined because Arno wanted to include references to all of the Kaijin from the first 8 episodes. He decided to merge 2 of them together into one because he couldn't fit in the 8th one. Granted, in the final film, they have cut out the reference to Serentian, which is like a plant Kaijin. So one of the 8 isn't mentioned in the film now, but whatever. So yeah, KK Og, in being a combination of 2 Kaijin, or two creatures, the Mantis and the Chameleon, that's a reference to the Gelshocker faction from the ending of the original Kamen Rider, which their Kaijin would be combinations of 2 separate creatures.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's like a double reference.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. But he is such a cool Og.
I know. He's one of my favorites.
Now, before she gets stabbed, Ruriko gives Ichimonji a red scarf as well.
Yeah.
I guess we never brought up that the red scarf was given to Hongo at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
So Ruriko, like, one of her early memories of her dad was him being on a motorcycle with her older brother and him wearing a scarf.
Mm-hmm.
And she always wanted to ride
her memory, behind. But whatever, it's a photo.
Well, she had a memory of looking at that photo.
Yes.
And always wanting to be able to ride behind her dad on the motorcycle.
Yeah.
And so the scarf is kind of like, she views that as like, you have to have that if you're going to ride a motorcycle.
And if you're going to be a hero.
And if you're going to be a hero. So that kind of shows that she always viewed her dad as kind of a hero. Cool little thing there that she probably didn't mean to, like, Anno definitely meant to put, but like the character didn't mean to say, but said anyway. So she gives Ichimonji the scarf, gets stabbed, and then Ichimonji comes to his senses and like kicks KK-Og to another part of the industrial area they're in. And then I love how he just is standing there and he's like, I don't, what, it's something along the lines of, I don't know who you are, but because what you did to the Missy, you're going to pay.
Yeah.
And this is where I kind of realized that the first act is Ruriko. The second act is really and honestly, like, it's mostly Ruriko, and then it's Hongo, and then it's Ichimonji for the third act. So they kind of split it up so the characters get their development through those three parts. Hongo does get a little more development following this scene, but at this point he's been kind of explored, so this is just kind of like filling in the blanks that we don't know. So Ichimonji defeats KK-Og, which is really cool. The ultimate kick where he like flies and like hits multiple things was pretty funny.
Yeah. Just slamming him through multiple like walls.
And then Ruriko dies, which I was really shocked about. She transfers data over to Hongo's helmet, and Hongo feels like he has failed because he promised Shinya Tsukamoto's character that he would protect her. And he failed. I feel like from this there's a little bit of a time jump, but not a lot, because after this scene, Hongo's foot's fine.
Yeah, his I thought that was a bit weird how he could just walk again.
Especially after Ichimonji said that it would take a while for that to heal.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, but soon after that, Hongo is back to back to being good again, where he's then talking to the government officials on the beach about going to Butterfly Og and ending it. This comes after
scene of one of the government officials just giving Hongo some life advice on just moving on and how I'm just becoming a better person, moving on from his trauma of his father's death.
Right.
It's a great scene.
Because in this, so before that, we have Ruriko's final message to Hongo. Right? That's before this, or is it right after this?
No, that's before this.
So Ruriko's final message, talking about the scarf and whatnot, and how she likes him as a person, which is really heart touching, and like Hongo's acting, the actor's acting here is really good with the crying.
Yeah.
Then we get the life advice, and we get the backstory for how his father died and why he's doesn't want to kill, but he also knows he has to kill to save people. And how that even when his dad was shot on his deathbed, he wasn't asking about his family. He was asking about the person who shot him and the captive.
And if they were okay.
Which was really cool. And kind of heart touching. There's a lot of heart touching moments in this part specifically. And then from here, they're like, well, are you going to go after Butterfly Og? And Hongo says yes. And he says, but can you do me one favor? And it cuts away before we find out what this one favor is. But from here, it cuts to Kamen Rider driving, with Ichimonji watching from a bridge. And Ichimonji then says, oh, you're going alone, eh? Well, I can't.
I mean, there
have
was
that
also a
happen.
scene just a little bit before this where Ichimonji said, I'm not fighting the fight with you. I'd rather fight it on my own.
Right. And he says that he's not a fan of people following him,
Yeah.
which is what
Or
the
not a
government
fan of
officials...
following people.
Right. So the fact that he was like, well, we can't have that happen. I was like, oh my God, yes. Because at first I was like, no, do not let Dainigo. Do not let Dainigo just disappear, like, at this point. Like, I'd hate that. I'd hate it if Dainigo just became this character that never appeared.
If they didn't give us double rider action after introducing him, movie would have been an instant 0 out of 10.
So then Hongo appears at Butterfly Ogg's lair, and now it's suddenly bigger because he goes inside, and there's a...
we did never see like them entering.
This is true.
So yeah, he just goes to through a tunnel to the entrance of Butterfly Ogg's chamber.
And it's a really, like, this whole sequence is really, really, really dark.
Yeah.
And this is where the effects do not shine very well.
Yeah. And this is also where we get the appearance of the Shocker Riders,
which are Kamen Rider clones that Butterfly Ogg has made to fight Hongo.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be... So what's a group of grasshoppers? Is that a horde? Like a horde of locusts?
Yeah, I guess.
So it's a horde of riders that are chasing after Hongo with machine guns and whatnot. In this fight, Hongo rips off the helmet of one, and they look like actual grasshopper people, kind of like the aliens from Terraformers, to be honest. The Miike film.
I haven't seen it, so.
Oh, well, in that there's cockroach people, and they kind of look similar to this.
Mm-hmm.
And when Hongo's like, his bike's missing, he's on the floor. One of the horde's riders is like on top of him, and he's just firing his machine gun like point blank at his helmet.
Yeah.
You think it's all over. Ichimonji comes in like a god, and is like, I'm here. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And then they defeat the horde, and they ride to... And
I
somehow
should mention,
Cyclone...
before we move on, I should mention it is extremely disappointing that 80% of, like 90% of this sequence with Shocker Riders is CG. It is massively disappointing, especially having seen the behind the scenes where, they do have a couple insert shots of like the actual Shocker Rider suits, but they're very brief, and because the scene's very dark, it's really hard to tell.
Mm-hmm.
But like, there was going to be a fight scene in the daylight, and it looked really cool. It was like at the factory area from earlier in the film.
Huh.
Yeah. It's really sad they cut that. And then there's also a version of this sequence that they shot, instead of being in a tunnel, they shot it like outside in the rain, in a sort of tribute to the Shocker Rider's first appearance of the manga, when they show up in the rain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, following the Shocker Riders fight, Ichimonji and Hongo finally get to Butterfly Ogg's lair, where they just so a lot happens. Like, this is the end of the film. This is the final act, which is a little weird because it doesn't really feel like a final act fight, but it is. So Butterfly Ogg gets up from his throne that is feeding him prana. And when he does, Hongo and Ichimonji use their bikes to blow up his throne so he can't get any more prana. because he kind of like he eats prana, so like that's where he gets his power from.
I mean, they all consume prana,
right? But like
that's the energy.
He consumes it in large amounts. He has a whole thing like set up for it.
Oh yeah,
he's like the ultimate Og.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one thing you brought up earlier, how theatrical this film is. The actor for Butterfly Og is moving like he's in a kabuki play. And I love that.
Now that you mention that, yeah. Especially when like he gets off from his throne.
Mm-hmm. It's very kabuki-like. And I noticed that from the first moment I watched this movie. I was like, man, his motions are really exaggerated and really like theatrical. It's just like a kabuki play, which I loved. I loved that. And then we get there's some back and forth on everything, and this is where Butterfly Og finally becomes the Og, like with the uniform and all, as he morphs, like the proboscis that a butterfly has, like comes out of the middle of his head, which is really, really creepy and cool. And then he shows his mask and puts it on, and it's designed to be a little bit like Inazu-Man, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's meant. Yeah, like his face is meant to look like Inazu-Man, but then like his actual mask is inspired by both Kamen Rider X and also Shadow Moon from Black.
And it's cool because he's like, I am the original Kamen Rider, because like he was the first to be made, and he's like the ultimate Og.
I mean, in the manga, he has like another form that's like based off a character named Crossfire, which is like which was basically like the concept art for like before Kamen Rider. Essentially, that's what evolved into Kamen Rider.
Interesting. So that's where the Kamen Rider Zero statement came from.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. So at this moment, Ichimonji and Hongo fight. Butterfly Og. It's obvious Butterfly Og's
his belt is also the double Typhoon, which is Kamen Rider V3's belt.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I love that. I love that little Easter egg. So they fight. It's obvious Butterfly Og's way more powerful.
Yeah.
It gets to the point where both Ichimonji and Hongo are thrown at the same time, and their helmets just so happen to fall right next to them. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love the Showa stuff. And this is where like Ichimonji's like, what are we going to do here? And Hongo's like, I got a plan. And so this reminded me of, so Ichimonji says, next time you have a plan, tell me. It reminded me a lot of in Ghostbusters. Gozer, the Gozerian, asks Ray, "Are you a god?" And Ray says, "No." And then Gozer says, "Then die." And the scene after this, Winston Zedmore tells Ray, if somebody asks you if you're a god, you say yes. I was like, dude, that's like, it feels so much like Ghostbusters. I doubt it's like meant to be like a callback or a reference to that, but it was the same like setup for that line, and I loved that. And then we find out the plan is to get the mask off. He has to have the helmet off. So the rest of the fight is them trying to get the mask off. And this is where this fight goes stale. Like, I bring up that this doesn't feel like a final fight, and it's because it ends up just being like two kids wrestling.
It turns into roughhousing.
And it's like, what are we doing here? Like, I am so bored.
So, throughout this film's production, Anno had issues with
you've been waiting for
choreography.
You've been waiting for this the entire time.
So, I mean, the very first fight of the film, like in the opening scene, that was filmed like at least two times.
Mm-hmm.
And Anno wasn't really satisfied with the fight choreography in either, outright just banning the action director from using wire work on the rest of the film because he felt it looked not only was the fight too, like, it looked too rehearsed, he also just felt that, like, there was no realism in the wire work. Which is
then
a
he
bit
never
weird.
needs to watch Princess Blade.
Which is a bit weird when you're doing a Kamen Rider film.
Right. I feel like that's like something that
That's
just has to happen.
Especially when you've literally got a justification for Kamen Rider being able to do his rider kick in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Like where he's got like the prana that allows him to, like, I think they say he can readjust himself in the air in the film.
Yes.
So like there would be no issue with wire work because there's an actual justification in the film. But whatever. But yeah, Anno was basically never satisfied with any of the fights in this film, so that I think that's partly why the fight with the shocker grunts in the Wasp sequence is just removed. I'm pretty sure that's why. And frankly, at a certain point, a lot of the cast and crew were getting sick of it. Like, there's even parts where, like, in the behind-the-scenes documentary where Sosuke Ikematsu, Kamen Rider Takeshi Hongo's actor, is like, "Oh, what's the point of even filming this? We're gonna reshoot this anyways." So,
So, was this like just the end result of like everybody being done with this production?
this scene in particular was where it sort of came to the boiling point. Because Arno wasn't liking how rehearsed everything felt, and he was like, "They need to be going for the mask. They need to be going for his mask from the get-go. That needs to be their strategy." And like he ended up like yelling at the action director, and eventually the action director just walked off set. And from there, Arno tried to get the cast members, which, bear in mind, from what I understand in this sequence, it's the actual actors playing the riders in the suit.
I felt like it was. Who probably don't know anything about action coordination.
I mean, I know Ikematsu did do a fair bit of his own stunts in this film. I mean, he even broke his leg like Hiroshi Fujioka did back in 1971.
That's right. I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, because like literally at the announcement for this film, he literally had crutches because he'd broken his leg during production. But yeah, he wasn't getting he wasn't satisfied with the results of just having the actors improvise, so he apologized to the action director, and they finished the fight.
Well, this fight is awful. I hate it.
I actually don't mind it. I definitely think the roughhousing is the worst part of the fight.
Yes. Specifically after they regroup and start fighting, I think it's awful. During this fight, Ichimonji gets his arm broke.
Yeah.
Which sometimes is relevant, sometimes is not, from what I was able to see. Mm-hmm. By the end of the fight sequence, it seems like that's not relevant because he's moving it like normal. Mm-hmm. But during the fight, it's not irrelevant. So Hongo's like fighting, and then he screams "Ichimonji now!" and that's where they butt heads, and both masks fly off. There's also been blood going everywhere from both Kamen Riders. And
it's a really raw shot of Ichimonji's mask breaking off, by the way.
Yes.
That shot is so raw.
And from here, Hongo puts on the actual Kamen Rider mask on Butterfly Og, which I forgot to mention, or we forgot to mention, during the roughhousing, Butterfly Og breaks Hongo's henshin device.
Yeah, his belt.
Which is concerning. Mm-hmm. But they don't touch on it until a little bit later, which is I thought was fine because it wasn't relevant at the time.
Hongo puts his mask onto Ichiro, and Ichiro sees because earlier Ruiko had essentially implanted her consciousness into the mask.
Which is weird.
To be fair, that is based on the manga from Ishinomori.
That is?
Yeah, I'll explain a little bit of that later.
Okay.
But yeah, so he sees Ruriko and has a conversation with her, essentially giving him his happiness back, I guess you could say. Because Hongo took inspiration from his dad and just wanted to make at least one of the villains not die in complete despair. Because one thing that I actually noticed is that Shocker's goal is to lead mankind into happiness, but in the end, Kumo, Spider, Bat, Scorpion, and Wasp, they all die in despair and sadness. Even Chameleon, because they either die not being understood or accepted in the case of Bat and Kumo, or Hiromi, and especially Chameleon, because Chameleon's motivation was to get revenge, to avenge Spider. Yeah, they don't achieve their goals, so they all die in sadness, which is in complete antithesis to Shocker's ultimate goal, leading those in despair to happiness. Except for Ichiro. He is the only Shocker villain of this film who dies in happiness. Even the founder of Shocker dies from suicide.
And sad. I'd never thought about that. Huh.
Yeah.
Huh. I honestly don't know what to say to that.
I didn't realize it until maybe an hour before, not even an hour before the recording. I was just thinking about them and I'm like, wait a minute. They all die in despair. They all suffer ironic fates except for Ichiro.
And the part that makes that the most interesting is all the others are doing, quote, what they want to do. Whereas Ichiro ends up going back on what his ultimate plan is.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Ichiro in the manga as well, I mean, his goal when he joined Shocker was not to bring everyone to the Habitat World. He joined Shocker when he was 10 because of him and his own father's despair. Because they were both exploited by the cult and essentially indoctrinated into it. Ichiro grew up in Shocker wanting to rid humanity of hate and violence because he was bullied in school and, he lost his mother due to a murderer.
Mm-hmm. Which, his mother is not Ruriko's mother.
No. Yeah, no, Ruriko has no relation to Ichiro's mother.
Does she even have a mother? Because we forgot to bring this up.
So in the film, it's mentioned that she has an artificial wound. In the Shocker Side manga, she's only recently been introduced. I don't quite remember the exact details of it, but from what I sort of recall, she was the daughter of one of Shocker's Midorikawa, Professor Midorikawa's assistants in the Shocker lab, who died, and I think his daughter died. And so, no, hang on.
I have no idea, so keep going.
So, okay, she was a young girl who suffered severe brain damage in an accident, and so similar to Ichiro's mother, I should mention. And so they revived her, but she lost all her memories of her original life. thus Professor Midorikawa replaced her
Adopted her?
memories with new ones as if she was a part of their family.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So she has a tragic past,
Yeah,
which
essentially.
would explain why she doesn't trust people.
Yeah.
Okay. I really hope. Does the manga have an English translation officially?
Not official.
I really hope it gets brought over to the States because that, like,
I think the film works without it, but I think I definitely think that
it
the
adds.
additional context adds a lot to the
Yes.
film. It adds to Shocker as a whole. It certainly adds to both Spider and Scorpion Org. And it just adds to the world.
Mm-hmm. I love that about it. Like, everything you've said so far has been like, oh, wow, that's really cool.
It's really good. It's actually really good. And the character it adds to the most is especially Ichiro.
Okay.
Since he's the protagonist of this. So far,
Oh, he
Takeshi
is?
Hongo. Yeah, so far I've neglected to mention that in this prequel manga, Takeshi Hongo and Hayato Ichimonji have so far never been mentioned.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's certainly something to dive into eventually.
Yeah.
Speaking of Hongo, following Butterfly Ogg's death, we get Hongo's death.
Yep.
Hongo ends up dying with Butterfly Ogg so that Butterfly Ogg's not alone.
Mm-hmm.
Which I was not expecting. Because I am going to guarantee you that in the original Kamen Rider show, he does not die. Am I accurate with that assumption?
Yes, but in the manga, he does die. In the manga, he is actually killed by the Shocker Riders, which I should mention, Hayato Ichimonji was one of the Shocker Riders in the manga. But
Okay.
I don't remember exactly how, but he stopped the brainwashing for Hayato.
Okay. So Hongo dies. I feel really bad for Ichimonji because he's like, I'm alone again. And I'm like, oh, God.
Yeah.
We love Ichimonji. We stan Ichimonji on this podcast.
Mm-hmm. We do. I have been
do.
standing him since I saw him in the original.
So
My man.
So after this, we get Ichimonji in a very depressed state, who's like, well, we enter this world alone, we're going to die alone. Speaking of depressed, something that I wanted to bring up that I thought was really cool is throughout this movie, they bring up that the kanji for happiness is the exact same as despair, except there's a stroke that's missing. Correct?
Yeah. I think it's
Which
pain, but yeah.
Pain? Okay. Which is really interesting. That's actually very cool.
Mm-hmm.
So we have Ichimonji, who is very much in a depressed state. He has the scarf off. He's sad, but
And he has no
then,
mask.
correct. He's definitely retired from the Kamen Rider mantle. Like Hongo's death, to me, it seems like he's about to take his life because he's like, we leave this world alone. So it's like, is he gonna take his life? Like.
Mm-hmm.
Because he lost his only friend who related to him, I guess. So then the government officials walk up and say, Hongo wanted you to have the mask. We've restored it. It's got both Hongo and Ruriko's souls in it. And we're off to fight more Shocker if you're interested in fighting the good fight with us.
They're developing Cobra Man.
Cobra Ogg.
Yeah.
And Ichimonji's like, you know what? I can try this out. We'll see how it goes.
For the Missy and for Hongo.
I love that. So following this, they walk off the dock
And he's
onto
like,
land.
hey, by the way, I don't know your names. Who are you? I don't trust people who don't share their names.
So this is where we get the name drops. Their names
Yes.
are Tachibana and Taki. So those sound familiar. So Rex,
Yes.
how come these sound familiar?
Yes. Oh my god. So I remember wondering when I was watching the original Kamen Rider, and I saw the marketing for Shin Kamen Rider. I was wondering, are they going to include the two goats? So, in the original Kamen Rider, you obviously have Kamen Rider 1 and 2, and you have Ruiko. But outside of them, for your supporting cast, you also have Tobei Tachibana, played by the late Akiji Kobayashi, who played Captain Muramatsu in Ultraman.
Oh.
Tobei Tachibana would essentially become the mentor to Takeshi Hongo and also Hayato, and would essentially become the recurring character of Showa Rider, appearing in most Showa Rider shows as a sort of mentor figure. And Jiro Taki is a character from the show who was introduced around episode 11 and would go on to appear in every episode following this. So both these characters actually appear in the show more than either Hayato and Hongo do, technically.
Oh.
And yeah, Jiro Taki in the original show was an FBI agent played by Jiro Chiba, Sonny Chiba's brother.
Ah, I love that.
And he is the absolute goat. He is always in the action. He is great. He is like one of the most overlooked Kamen Rider characters. It's honestly a missed opportunity that he doesn't come back in like later Showa Rider shows. Because he's one of the best characters from the show. He's awesome. I love him. And I was so happy when this movie came out. All the leaks were coming out online from the theater pamphlet. And I saw Takumi Saito playing a government official character alongside Yutaka Takenuchi. And I'm like, oh my god, it's Tachibana and Taki.
Now, Tachibana, was that the name of the characters in the other Shin films, or am I going crazy?
What?
Was Tachibana a name used in the other Shin films, or am I crazy?
No. Yutaka Takenuchi was in both Shin Godzilla and Shin Ultraman.
As government officials.
Yeah, I don't remember. His character name in Shin Godzilla was not Tachibana. He did have a name. It was Hideki Akasaka.
Gotcha. So this basically confirms that the Shinverse is not something that exists.
Mm-hmm. I mean, unless this was code names. But let's be honest, that's stretching it.
Yeah. So after this, they disappear, and we kind of get a flash forward to Ichimonji's new suit, which is light green and really, really nice looking. Now, is that the V3 mask?
No.
Is that coming? Okay.
No. That mask it's a brighter green version of Kamen Rider New Ichigo, which is the suit. Okay, so this whole suit is based off the suit Takeshi Hongo wears from episodes 53 onwards, essentially. What would essentially become the modern design for Kamen Rider Ichigo.
Okay.
Except in this version, the gloves are black for some reason.
Gotcha. And he rides off into the sunset, and then he starts talking to Hongo, and Hongo's like, I feel everything. I'm here with you.
And they are Kamen Rider 2+1.
Is that a character in the original stuff, or is that
that's just what they're being called at the end of this film.
Okay, Kamen Rider 2+1. Okay. Now, during the credits, we get the theme songs for Shocker and Kamen Rider, which is really nice. I love the fact that those were playing over the theater speakers. We get Shirogumi did the effects for this movie, which is the Takashi Yamazaki company, who also worked on Shin Godzilla and Shin Ultraman and the upcoming Godzilla Zero. And like I said, that's run by Takashi Yamazaki. So I love it when I see Shirogumi appear. And then, so this ending's a little... So at the end of the film, the credits, most of the credits are not subtitled except for the major ones. And then we get the credit for the subtitler. And then there's some text That's not subtitled. Now, what I'm guessing is the first bit of subtitles is saying Kamen Rider first appeared in April of 1971. 50 years later, this is the anniversary. And then it shows highlights of Kamen Rider 71 of stuff that they were inspired by.
I mean,
right?
it's just a montage of like clips like from the show.
Okay.
Mainly from like the first 15 episodes.
But after that, there's still there's something that's like a quote at the very end of the movie, and it's not subtitled, and I'm really upset because I want to know what that last that whatever that is. Now, I do have I took a photo, and like I did Google Translate. But I don't know if this is right. It says, when the time so desire, Kamen Rider will surely revive. I think it means when times are dire, Kamen Rider will return, or something like that. And that was something Shotaro Shinomori said.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, we have talked over the entirety of Shin Kamen Rider. Do you want me to go through the credits of the cast and crew, and then we can talk about our final thoughts and wrap things up here?
Yes, and oh my god, I'm going to kill myself in editing.
Okay. So, going over the cast and crew, starting with the crew, we have Hideaki Anno as director and writer of this film. He co-directed Shin Godzilla, wrote and ghost-directed Shin Ultraman, directed Gamera 1999, a mockumentary that took place in between the events of Gamera 2 Advent of Legion and Gamera 3 Revenge of Iris.
Isn't it just like a documentary?
It's an in-universe documentary.
Wait, is it?
Yes.
Huh.
Yep. He was the genius or crazy person behind Neon Genesis Evangelion and the following films. He was the director and actor of Return of Ultraman, the 1987 fan film. He co-directed Giant God Warrior Appears in Tokyo. He was an actor and director of Cutie Honey. And he was an actor in Funky Forest and Death Kappa. The associate director, Katsura Onoue, was... like I said, he was the associate director. His credits include Onmyoji, Returner, Onmyoji 2, Cutie Honey, Sinking of Japan, Shin Godzilla, Ultraman Taiga the movie, Shin Ultraman, Spielbahn, Matildar, Blue SWAT, and then he also worked on Gamera 3, Revenge of Iris, Ultraman Z, episodes 9 and 10, Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0, Ultraman vs. Kamen Rider, Godzilla 2000, Godzilla vs. Megaguirus, and The 12-Day Tale of the Monster That Died in 8. Producer Kazuo Tishi Wadatura worked on Shin Godzilla and Shin Ultraman. Composer Taku Iwasaki has composed various animes.
I should mention his score. Amazing. I love this music.
It's very good. It's a very good score. Atsuki Sato, the VFX supervisor, worked on Gamera Guardian of the Universe, Gamera 2 Advent of Legion, Gamera 3 Revenge of Iris, Avalon, The Princess Blade, Godzilla Mothra King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack, Attack on Titan Part 1 and Part 2, Garm Wars The Last Druid, Shin Godzilla, and Shin Ultraman. So we have a lot of people that carried over from both Shin Godzilla, Shin Ultraman, and Cutie Honey and God Warrior that Anno had worked with into Shin Kamen Rider. But no Shinji Higuchi. As for your cast, Suzuki Ikematsu was in Tetsujin 28, the movie, Death Note, Light Up the World, Death Note, New Generation, and New World Killing.
It should also be noted that he starred alongside Tom Cruise and Hiroyuki Sanada and Ken Watanabe
in The Last Samurai. And then him along with Ichimonji's actor and Ruiko's actress, all appeared in Crayon Shin-chan as their characters in Shin Kamen Rider.
Yeah.
Minami Hambe Ruriko's actor, was in the Takashi Yamazaki war film, The Great War of
Archimedes.
Archimedes. So
I don't know if that's right. I'm just saying it like that.
Okay. So was Ichimonji's actor, Tetsuki Imoto.
Tasuku
both of
Imoto.
them. Okay, there you go. Both of them.
He was
appeared...
also in Remember, I should mention.
Was he?
Yeah, he plays like
cool.
plays like a librarian character.
Oh, interesting. Nansei Nishino Wasp Og wasn't in anything tokusatsu related that I could find,
but he was like a singer.
Yes, I've already brought up Shinya Tsukamoto. As for Bat Og, played by Toru Tezuka, he was in Gamera 3, Revenge of Iris, Uzumaki, Cutie Honey, Meatball Machine, Japan Sinks, 20th Century Boys 1, 2, and 3, Kamen Rider X Kamen Rider Double, and Decade Movie War, Dead Sushi, Shin Godzilla, Love and Peace, and Miss Zombie.
He was also in another Hideaki Anno movie, Love and Pop.
This is true. You have Kanata Hongo, Mantis, KK Og, who was in Returner, Moonchild, K-20 Fiend with 20 Faces, Gantz and Gantz 2, Attack on Titan Part 1, the movie, Attack on Titan Part 2, the movie, Full Metal Alchemist, the live-action films, all three of them, and the Subaraya miniseries Kaiju Club, where he played the main character. Nayo Amori, who played Spider Og's voice, was in Ichi the Killer, One Ichi, Parasite Part 1, and The Great Yokai War 2 Guardians. Masami Nagasawa, who played Scorpion Og, was in Pyrokinesis, her first film, which was directed by Shutsuke Kaneko, along with Godzilla Tokyo SOS and Godzilla Final Wars as half of the Shobijin. Hidden Fortress, The Last Princess, where she played the princess, and I Am a Hero, and Shin Ultraman. Tori Matsuka, who played Matsusaka K, was in Kamen Rider Decade, Samurai Sentai Shinkenger, which is what you're watching, and all four movies.
His appearance in Decade was as Shinken-Red.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because there's a crossover between them.
Oh, interesting. He was in the live-action film of Gatchaman. He was in Death Note, Light Up the New World, which he co-starred in with Sosuke Ikematsu. And he also did dubbing work for Sony Picture and Toho's Monster Hunter for the Japanese release.
Huh.
Mikako Ichikawa.
Mikako Ichikawa, yep.
Butterfly Og. She was in Cutie Honey and Shin Godzilla.
She was his mother, not Butterfly Og himself.
Oh, yes. I put Butterfly Og's mother. Oops. Suzuki Amatsu, the Shocker founder, was in
Matsuo. Yeah.
Was in Ichi the Killer, Shock Labyrinth 3D, and Shin Godzilla. You have Takumi Sato, who played Taki, who was in 20th Century Boys 3 Redemption, Robo Geisha. Funny how we came back to that. Vampire Girl vs. Frankenstein Girl, Space Battleship Yamato, Shin Godzilla, Yokai Watch, the live-action film, Fukushima 50, where he co-starred with Ken Watanabe, Shin Ultraman, Jellyfish Eyes, the early Minoru Kawasaki film, Kabuto O Beetle, and he appeared in Garo.
Bruh. I had an epitome on what episode he appeared in. It was insane.
Well, now you
I do
know.
not remember him being in that at all. But apparently he was there the whole time in one episode.
Hey, like the whole thing about this year of Kaiju Conversation is everything's connected to Shin Ultraman. Like it all spirals back to Shin Ultraman.
You did not just say Spiral. You did not just say Spiral. You did not just say Spiral.
We've been recording for 4 hours on the actual podcast, and there has not been a single Ring reference. So I had to find a way to loop it back around.
No. No. Why are you the one who makes some?
Because you didn't.
Oh yeah, I didn't even mention that I was reading my last ring book.
Oh, back to the cast and crew real quick. Yutaka Takanoguchi, who played Tachibana, was in Shin Godzilla and Shin Ultraman. And then you have Mirai Moriyama.
Mirai Moriyama. Mm-hmm.
Who played Butterfly Ogg, who was in 20th Century Boys 1 through 3.
And he was also in the third Always Sunset film.
Oh, really? That's weird. I noticed there's actually a lot of Takashi Yamazaki actors in this movie.
Yeah, actually, there was a couple from like Returner and some other stuff.
Right, Returner, one from Space Battleship Yamato, a few from the Great War of
Archimedes, I'm going to say.
Archimedes, yeah. I'm curious if any of them will reappear in Godzilla Zero, so we'll have to see.
I mean, Tasuku Imoto, his wife is Sakura Ando, whom is rumored to star in Godzilla Zero.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And his father is Akira Imoto.
And who was
in the Heisei Godzilla films.
That's right.
And then his brother was in Garo.
It's all connected.
Literally. His family has so many connections. It's not funny.
So with that's the cast and the crew. So I think we can go ahead here. This is going to be our longest episode now. Shin Ultraman had that, and now it's Shin Kamen Rider. Well, at least we can say that we probably have the most thorough discussion of the film Shin Kamen Rider on a podcast.
Until someone else beats us somehow.
Yeah, somehow. But before we wrap things up, I also just want to quickly talk here about our overall thoughts. So, Rex, I'm honestly really curious. I've avoided reading your opinions because you were really excited to see this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know what you thought. Was it a letdown? Was it exactly what you wanted? What did you think?
So Shin Kamen Rider, it's an interesting film because, I had heard a lot leading up to it. I was very, very excited for it. When all the spoilers came out after its release, when the NHK documentary came out, and there was a lot of things like learning, there's a lot more CG than we originally thought. The Shocker, they deleted the practical Shocker Rider fight. And all these sorts of things. I hear all the drama behind the scenes and all that. It's like, maybe, and seeing the initial Japanese response to this was kind of mixed. Certainly more mixed than Shin Godzilla or Shin Ultraman were.
Mm-hmm.
But when I saw it, I loved it, baby.
You did?
Yes. It was awesome. And the response has seemingly warmed up too. Even the Japanese response to it has gotten better. Yeah. The initial response, reactions were pretty polarizing for the most part, leaning a bit more to the positive side. So not quite Black Sun, where it's either you love it or you absolutely despise it in Japan. But
and this actually did end up being the most successful Kamen Rider movie.
Yeah. It wasn't as successful as Shin Godzilla or Shin Ultraman, though.
Here's the thing. So, Shin Godzilla, it's still not the most successful Godzilla movie. I think it's number 2, correct?
Number 3 or 4 or something.
Okay. But Shin Ultraman is the most successful Ultraman movie, and Shin Kamen Rider is the most successful Kamen Rider movie. So by all
for their own franchises, Kamen Rider and Ultraman have been very successful. Shin Ultraman just was very successful. It released at the perfect time. Mm-hmm. It released during Golden Week. There wasn't too much notable competition. There was some Hollywood films, but they were films that ended up it was kind of figured they were going to bomb in Japan, and they did.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, Shin Kamen Rider had some pretty stiff competition, and on top of that, it was rated PG-12 in Japan. whereas Shin Godzilla and Shin Ultraman were both G-rated.
Mm-hmm.
So a portion of the audience had parents concerned about taking their kids to see it. So,
Which kind of leads to an expected lower attendance.
Yeah, precisely.
Okay. So where would you what's your Shin ranking? Because I don't see us getting another Shin movie, to be honest. It seems like Shin Gamera will not happen, and I don't think Anno will do Shin Super Sentai.
Please just give us sequels to Shin Ultraman and Shin Kamen Rider, please, God.
Well, where would you take it? Where would you take Shin Kamen Rider to?
I mean, they literally left the door open for K and I. Because that subplot is not resolved.
Mm-hmm.
And they're leaving it open for where the manga goes. With the big machine robot. Which is essentially the final antagonist of the manga. I think the idea is to have I develop to eventually just become Big Machine. And, Anno, I mean, he talked about the potential of a sequel to Shin Kamen Rider being a hypothetical Shin Kamen Rider, Kamen no Sekai, or in English, Masker World, or World of Masks, which is the title of the last chapter of Kamen Rider, the manga, in which Big Machine is the main villain, and it would explore like the government and Shocker's relation to AI.
Mm-hmm.
In the manga, it was that the government was partly responsible for creating Big Machine. Like they were the ones who developed the technology. Yeah, they created the technology for like the AI, then Shocker stole it, essentially.
Gotcha.
So yeah. I would love to see it in that.
Do you think we'll see a movie, or do you think it'll stay in the manga form?
I don't know. I really hope that this and Shin Ultraman get a sequel, because I really do want to see more of this world. I want to see more of Imoto as Hayato.
Fair enough. So, okay. Now, let me hear your rankings of the 3 Shin movies.
God, this is hard, because I think I like them all a lot, and I think they're actually all really, really close to each other. But if I had to rank them for now, in saying this could absolutely change on rewatch for all of these films, except for the one I think that is at the top, that I think will be staying there.
Start at the bottom.
Yeah. So at the bottom, for now, I'm going to say Shin Ultraman.
Okay.
I now bear in mind, I love Shin Ultraman. Absolutely amazing movie. But just based on my first watch alone, from what I remember of my feelings toward it on my first watch, compared to my feelings on Shin Kamen Rider on my first watch, I think I liked Shin Kamen Rider a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Following that is Shin Godzilla, and then at the very top, Shin Evangelion.
Bro, no, no.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Rewind.
Yes.
You have to put Shin Kamen Rider in.
I just did.
You said Shin Evangelion.
No, I said Shin Ultraman, Shin Kamen
Stop
Rider, Shin
gaslighting
Godzilla,
me.
and then Shin Evangelion.
No.
I'm not gaslighting. Just listen to the episode.
Stop gaslighting me.
Listen
You're not going to do this.
Saying. Stop just ignoring me. Stop trying to gaslight me.
I'm not going to deal with this. Shin.
Man, you are literally Hideaki Anno with this abusive behavior on set.
Don't you ever compare me to Hideaki Anno. I swear to God, Rex, I will end everything. You want to know what I have that Hideaki Anno can't do?
What?
I can create an ending.
I mean, he made a banger ending to Evangelion. He made two
It was
banger
awful.
endings. He made two banger
It was
endings.
awful.
It's literally
It
the
was
best Shin
awful.
film.
End of
haven't even
Evangelion
seen
is
it.
hot garbage, and
No,
the end of Evangelion in the show is awful.
No.
They're both bad.
Oh, yeah, that's right. There's actually 3 endings. I forgot. So there's the show ending. There's
Which
End
is
of Evangelion.
bad. Which is absolute garbage.
They're both amazing.
They're awful.
And then,
you are wrong.
Shut up. Let me speak. Shut up. Let me speak. And then there's Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0, aka Shin Evangelion, which is the best Shin movie by far.
Okay, I'm done listening to you.
It was literally the best one.
You are wrong.
It was incredible.
You are wrong.
It was a literal masterpiece.
Now,
2.5 hours of animated perfection. Spider-Verse, what's that? Never heard of it.
Now, if we want to talk about the right opinion, let me just slide in here. Let me slide into these DMs. So, I thought Shin Kamen Rider was a lot of fun. As I mentioned, this is my first this is my entry level into the Kamen Rider franchise. Some people say this is a bad spot to start. I don't know.
I
but I liked it. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed this thoroughly. I didn't understand everything, but I had enough explanation where I could follow the story and I could be interested in my characters and in my story. I would love to see a sequel. I would absolutely love to see a sequel. I also agree. I want to see a Shin Ultraman sequel. I feel like both of those, unlike Shin Godzilla, would be set up perfectly for sequels, and I would love to see that. So I hope we see a future of these franchises. I'd love to see a trilogy. I'd love to see a trilogy. I like them. I like Shin Kamen Rider a lot. I really do. Mm-hmm. If I had to rank the 3 Shin films, I would put Shin Godzilla at the bottom. I do not like that movie. I used to think it was bad, but now I admit it's okay. But I just all of the Ono-isms are too.
By the time we cover it on this podcast, you'll learn to love it.
That's not true.
That'd be really funny if it did happen, though.
Actually, so back in my day, I said that Shin Godzilla was a bad movie. And now in my old and senile age, I've realized it's peak cinema. Oh, that Idiakano knows what he's doing. That's what's going to happen because I'm going to be an 80-year-old man by the time we cover that movie. But yeah, no, I loved Shin Kamen Rider. I don't like Shin Godzilla, so that would hit the bottom of my list. I don't like it. It's not bad, but it's not good. I never was invested with the characters. I don't like that film. The Ono-isms are too heavy. As for number 2, I'd put Shin Ultraman. I mentioned it earlier. I think Shin Ultraman has the problem of it's very episodic, but the issue is 2 of the episodes, in air quotes, feel like they're the same story, just different characters.
Actually, that does remind me of one thing I wanted to point out, actually, was that these Shin Godzilla, Shin Kamen Rider, and Shin Ultraman, I notice, all have kind of a similar pacing issue. It's less noticeable with Shin Godzilla because it's not quite the same with it, because it's not got the episodic format. But all of them start off really sort of fast-paced, high energy, but by around the middle of the movie, they slow down a huge amount, which I think all of them have been criticized for majorly.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. In Shin Godzilla, it's after
the atomic breath.
Yep. So I could see that. But I think so, and this is where my number 1 spot, Shin Kamen Rider. I think this is Anno's best work. Honestly, this is probably my favorite Hideaki Anno film.
Damn. You should watch it.
I admittedly, I haven't seen a lot of his work. But I genuinely believe that this film, Anno, I feel like concludes it very well. Even though it's not a definite ending, this is the best ending he's done. It doesn't, like, it leaves the door open, but you also feel accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
The Anoisms are present, but they are not too obvious.
Mm-hmm.
The film, it's a lot of fun. It fixes the issues I think Shin Ultraman has, and it's more interesting. And
which issues specifically?
So specifically the episodic issue and the repetition.
Oh, right. Yep. Okay.
Because in Shin Ultraman you have the Mephiles,
Zerub and Mephiles sequences one after another. Yeah.
Which feel like the same story, just twice.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this one, the only one where that would fall into place would be the Scorpion Og and Spider Og, but they alter Scorpion Og's story to not be repetitious, which I love that.
I mean, Scorpion Og is essentially is basically just the start of Wasp Org sequence.
Correct, which I thought was it's kind of genius with that concept. Both Spider and Scorpion would have a similar story, so why not use Scorpion to just gateway into Wasp Og and skip all of it and just kind of highlight the important parts, which is what it felt like they were trying to do with Zerub and Mephiles, but they wanted to show everything. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
I guess, yeah.
Because, like, both of those stories are relevant to the plot, but if you cut one of them and just show the important parts, it would have been a little better. I think Shin Kamen Rider is really, really well done. I enjoy it a lot, and I'm happy that we got it in the States. I'm happy we were able to cover it. I had a lot of fun with it. So, that is my favorite.
What about Shin Evangelion?
Don't care. So with that, I think we can go ahead and wrap things up here, Rex. So before you have a stroke, why don't you tell the lovely folks... Well, suck it up because you got to link yourself. So why don't you go ahead and let the people know who are listening where they can find you, because you have had a ton to edit. So.
Oh, God. Well, dear listeners, if I make it through this recording, you can find me on YouTube at Rexino, on Twitter at Rex_Xenomorph, on Instagram, Rex_Xeno, and I also write on the Tokusatsu Network, so feel free to check out me there.
And as for me, you can find me on YouTube at ET13 Productions, on Twitter at ET13 Productions, or on Instagram at ET13 Productions. I also write for Kaiju Ramen Media, so if you go to kaijuramenmedia.com, you can purchase any of the articles we've posted, the issues we posted, or read the articles I've wrote. Beyond that, if you want to find my personal accounts, I'm not going to link them, but it's pretty easy to find them, so good luck. I also used to do some writing for GodzillaMovies.com. You can find those articles still if you want to look. But as for the podcast, don't forget to rate us on iTunes. That boosts our ratings and helps us get recommended to more people just like you. We have been review bombed in the past, and we're sitting at a solid 3.1. I feel like for a podcast that talks about Shin Kamen Rider in depth for 4 hours, I feel like we're worth more than a 3.1. So if you guys could leave us an iTunes review, that would be highly appreciated. If you don't have an Apple device, which I don't blame you, I don't, that's actually really and honestly brutally a lie. I use a MacBook to do this podcast. You can rate us on Spotify now, so if you want to go leave a 5-star there, that'd be perfect. If you want to stay up to date with all things Kaiju Conversation related, follow us on Twitter at KAIJU_CONVERS. If you don't have Twitter, you can follow us on Instagram or like us on Facebook. If you're like me before podcasting and you don't have any social media, lucky you, you can email us at kaijuconversation@gmail.com, all lowercase, all one word, you know the drill. And as always, we'll read your reviews on air for everyone to hear. We also have a Teespring store. Eventually we'll have original artwork, but until then, you can sport an awesome logo on a t-shirt or maybe even a coffee mug. If you'd like to chat with Rex and I, check out our Discord server full of others that have similar interests to you. Recently, there was a discussion about Let's see here. Drum roll. It looks like we are talking about the school ghost stories, those films from the mid to late 90s, the straight to home video. Actually, that's where a lot of J-horror started, was stuff like that. So
yeah,
it's a great community full of great people talking about a ton of different kaiju, tokusatsu, and film in general stuff. So definitely check it out. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you can be notified anytime we upload a video. We sometimes post exclusives to the channel like bloopers for episodes or minisodes talking about news or other subjects. We also have an interview with Mechagodzilla designer Jared Kercheveski on the channel. I probably butchered his name, so I apologize. And a huge thanks to Rex for editing all of these episodes and the content we upload. This one's going to be a doozy. So definitely check him out. His links can be found in the description below. Along with Rex, we'd like to give a huge thanks and shout out to Danny DeBana of the Godzilla Novelization Project for his amazing vocals on our theme song. You can support him by following him on Twitter at Danzilla93_GNP or visit his website GodzillaNovelizationProject.com. And a huge thanks to Gratton Conwell from the podcast Giant Monster BS for composing the music for our theme song. You can support him by following the podcast on Twitter at Giant Monster BS or on any podcast platform under the name Giant Monster BS. And with that, we're going to wrap things up here finally. 4 hours and like 30 minutes in, we are finally wrapping things up here. So thank you guys so much for listening to us talk about Kamen Rider and listen as I learn more about a tokusatsu franchise I know very little about. Mm-hmm. So thank you guys again. And as always, please remember, life's too short to not talk big. Or in this case, talk like Shin. Bye, guys.
Bye.
We are set, we are in debt, there's nothing to sweat. Life's too short now, baby. And not too big now, baby. Conversation. His name's Elijah, baby. And also Rex now, baby. We love those kaiju, baby. And you will too now, baby.